My name is Gwen Moore. I'm a member of Congress from Wisconsin. I represent the 4th Congressional District of Wisconsin. Thank you. Which includes Milwaukee, South Milwaukee, Cudahy, St. Francis, West Milwaukee, and portions of West Dallas. A very great school district, and later on this afternoon we're going to hear from the superintendent of schools for the largest school district in that congressional district from the Milwaukee Public School District. But right now, this educational brain trust, the focus of it is educational success, high-performing schools in Black communities. I'm standing in for Representative Danny Davis and Representative Bobby Scott, who in fact are in charge of this particular brain trust, and I'm pitch hitting for them. But I'm excited about this opportunity because this brain trust is going to spotlight those schools and strategies that are effectively producing high academic achievement and attainment among Black children, academically, socially, and emotionally. Attendees will hear from experts and practitioners who will share their knowledge of what works to ensure that our students are prepared to succeed in school and ultimately in life. We have 2 panels. The first panel focuses on specific examples of what works. Schools that are majority, low-income, and minority students that are succeeding. Principals and school administrators will talk about the key factors to their school's excellence. The second panel focuses on policies to grow success. So the first panel is on strategies that work. Second, on policies that grow success. Superintendents and multi-school administrators will share the ways that they have worked to help many schools show the level of success and improvement described by our first panel. So, we plan to have substantial time for audience question and answer period. So get your pencils and papers out. And so this is going to be a workshop where you actually get to engage with our experts in thoughtful discussion on these policy issues. But before we start our first panel, we have a very special treat here today. We have with us the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Education. And as you know, education is definitely a civil rights. It was like the cornerstone of the Great Society during the Lyndon Baines Johnson era. Education, and for those of you who are young, I think many people in the room will remember those students who marched to integrate schools, and education certainly was at the cornerstone. So we're really happy to have the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Education with us here today. Her background is she's from the Midwest. She has an education from the Midwest. Her JD from Northwestern University School of Law. She has had experience practicing. She was a contract attorney at Byrd, Morella, Boxer, and Wolbert, the deputy co-director of counsel for the Advancement Project in Los Angeles. In the education arena, she was a teacher. It matters a lot when you know what you're talking about. And she served as the liaison for Marian Wright Edelman, one of my heroes, for the president of the Children's Defense Fund, and the Assistant Director of Policy and Research at the Broad Foundation. So she has legal abilities, she's a researcher. Before she was appointed to the Department of Education, she had been Vice President of the Education Trust in Washington, D.C., and the founding Executive Director of the Education Trust in Oakland, California. I can tell you that I hope that you won't be bored during her talk. I have often mentioned to Secretary Duncan that he needs someone with a little bit more enthusiasm to be. I hear some of you are laughing. I think you might know what I'm alluding to. But she is not only a very serious attorney, litigating some of the violations of civil rights that she's found in educational opportunity. She not only is steeped deep and wide in the policy imperatives around educational opportunity and civil rights, but she's actually practiced, been a teacher and litigator, and so with much ado, I introduce to you the Assistant Secretary for Education, Ms. Ruslan Ali. Try not to go to sleep, people.
You know, Congresswoman always messing with me. Always messing with me, and we so appreciate it because you push us, you make us better, you make us smarter, and you, along with your colleagues in the CBC, make us always focus like a laser on the children that are in most need in this country, and I thank you for that. I am humbled to be here with you today, as I keep introducing this front row, the staff for the CBC. They're the smartest folks on Capitol Hill, let me tell you that now. And to be a part of a conversation today about what works, about those successes, because so much of my professional career has been steeped in what's wrong and the hobbling achievement gap that separates poor students and students of color from their peers across the country. So to be in a room with the likes of the superintendents and educators that you will hear from today is indeed a real pleasure. And to kind of be back home with one of my favorite superintendents, Tony Smith from Oakland Unified, is also a real honor. Good to see you, Tony, and thank you I miss Oakland. I gotta tell you, I miss Oakland, but we know that you and your colleagues are doing what's right for kids there, so thank you very much. I sit on this perch, as Congresswoman Moore articulated, during a time when both the President and the Secretary of Education have called education the civil rights issue of our generation. How humbling that is for me, and the sense of responsibility that we, my colleagues and I, bring to this work every single day, because we know, when the administration has made it abundantly clear, that we are not going to reach the promise of equity in society unless we reach the promise of equity in our schools. So equity is woven through everything we do as a Department of Education. That's about preserving those formula funding streams that have been the lifeline for poor kids in this country, like Title I. It's about using monies in new ways to leverage a kind of behavior change and reach some aggressive systemic reform. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about a little grant program called Race to the Top. That is, we have 12 winners that you may know of just recently, and I want to tell you this, that though there's been a lot of conversation about whether those competitive grant dollars will help the kids in most need, the results bear that out. A full 44% of African American students in the country live in those 12 states that have received Race to the Top funds. So it certainly is about our competitive grants. It's about focusing dollars always like a laser on the kids that need them the most. The teacher investment fund, teacher incentive fund, that's really about making sure that our teachers have the supports they need to teach kids that need them the most. School improvement grants, you might have heard a lot about that. You're looking at $4 billion finally targeted to the nation's lowest performing schools. We have a lot of work left to do, but we certainly, in every which way we can, are making sure that finally we work to change the paradigm that exists in this country today. And that is, and I know you know these data all too well. Well, I feel like I should just stop talking right now. Hello, Congressman Fattah. No, you can't.
I gotta go vote with a great man with the very best. head of OCR that the department's ever had.
That's very generous. Congressman Shaka Patel, we could do so little without his leadership and his colleagues on the Hill. One of the things that I'll talk about in a moment is the congressman's push to get us focused, also like a laser, on fiscal equity, really tacking that 800-pound gorilla in every room. We can have lots of conversations about new policies and new monies targeted, but at best, federal dollars are about 8 cents on the dollar of what this country spends on public education. So it really is about leveraging the money that state and locals spend to ensure equity. At the congressman's request, along with some of his Congressman Honda and other colleagues on the Hill, the Secretary has called for the establishment of an equity commission to really, for the first time, focus again like a laser on fiscal inequities in this country and what the federal government can do to spur change. But you know what these data say. You know why we have to do this work on almost every measure. Poor kids and kids of color are at the bottom in almost every discipline, in almost every subject, and not just a little bit at the bottom. Only about 1 in 25 African American students that take the ACTs, those that are college bound, in other words, are actually college ready. In far too many of our communities everywhere, students are dropping out in droves. You've heard about those dropout factories, right? Where over 50% of students are dropping out. Turns out there are 2,000 high schools in the country that produce 75% of the nation's African American and Latino dropouts. We are focused like a laser on helping them get better as well, because unless we boldly transform the way these schools work, we will never reach the goal the President has set for all of us, and that is that by 2020, we will once again lead the nation in lead the world in the percentage of college graduates. That means a full 8 million more young people between now and then will need to earn a 4-year degree, a 2-year degree, or be in a solid apprenticeship program that's going to enable them to earn a sufficient wage and get benefits. We know that far too many of the students that do graduate are getting into college and needing to take remediation. In other words, paying for credits paying for classes that they aren't earning credit for, where colleges are having to redo what high school should have done for them. I can go on and on about the problem, and we can talk for a very long time about the solution, because when I say equity is woven through everything, I mean everything. On the higher ed side, we just put $850 million, just focus on historically black colleges and universities. As the Secretary has said, we can't just ensure that HBCUs survive, we have to make sure they thrive if we're really going to reach the promise of our integrated society. Schools that serve children of color are still separate and in far too many places still unequal. So the Secretary called for a reinvigoration of the Office for Civil Rights at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, at the anniversary of Bloody Sunday. Since then, we have launched investigations across the country on issues like access to the kinds of courses students are going to need to succeed and be college ready, because we still see a kind of embedded tracking in far too many places throughout this nation, where black and brown kids aren't getting access to those courses that they're going to need to succeed. We're looking at funding comparability to ensure that we are spending dollars at least equally, if not equitably. We are tackling issues like campus rape, because 1 in 5 women are subject to violence, sexual violence on college campuses in this country. We are tackling issues like rape at the high school level. You may have heard about the young girl who was allegedly raped during a homecoming dance by multiple perpetrators for multiple hours. There are real and could be civil rights concerns for the adults in those systems to ensure a safe learning environment. It's also about helping folks. So when we hear about things like the Compton cookout that happened in California, or the noose that was hanging in a library, we're going to go and work with those faculty and students to ensure a safe environment free from racial harassment. So it is very much about using incentives and dollars. It is also very much about using the power of these civil rights laws to ensure that students are free from discrimination and to use all of the tools within our disposal to push this very important movement. I will leave you with this. I know I don't have to tell anyone in this room about the importance of this movement, but it doesn't look like one. It doesn't look like any of the civil rights movements of the past. Those young people, those leaders upon whose shoulders we stand. We can't make a movement without you, without the folks in this room that will go back to their communities, that will help embed this notion of equity for all in the American consciousness. Whether it's the moral imperative that drives you, like I know it does so many in this room, whether it's the demographic imperative, Census Bureau says that by 2050, over half of the adults in this country will be adults of color, or whether it's the economic imperative, because there is no way, as the President has often reminded us, that we will succeed in this international and competitive global marketplace. It is a movement. Our children need us, and they need you, and we hope at the Department of Education to continue to be your partners as we do this work together and get really aggressive change with some impressive results as soon as possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Secretary Ellie. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and share your work with us and your inspiring words. At this time, I'd like to ask for the first panel to come to the stage, please. My name is Rashiji Green, and I work for Congressman Bobby Scott, one of today's honorary co-hosts of this event. There has been a tremendous amount of discussion, research, suggestions, hearings, and testimony over the past several years by Congress, think tanks, educators, and practitioners, nonprofit organizations, for-profit organizations, researchers, parents, students, and others about how to best address the educational needs of our students. As Secretary Ali said, we often hold these discussions in the context of what's going wrong. So as we move forward today, we thought it would be helpful to frame the discussion in the context of successful programs. Moreover, national policy is not simply created in a vacuum. We must remember that it is a direct bearing on each and every one of our communities and children. So today, we wanted to hear directly from our local practitioners, those on the ground who are running successful programs and can share with you positive feedback and recommendations to take to your home communities. During the first panel, you will hear from local practitioners who are running successful programs, and each will highlight a particular aspect of that program that they feel is critical to its success. The panelists include Richard Coleman, former executive director of An Achievable Dream in Newport News, Virginia, in Congressman Scott's district; Cynthia M. Hughes Hanna, principal of Calhoun North Elementary School in Chicago, Illinois; Dr. Michael A. Wiltshire, principal, Medgar Evers College Preparatory School in Brooklyn, New York; Alice Black, principal, Yvonne A. Ewell, Townview Center, Dallas, Texas; Lisa Berry Dockery, executive director of the High School for Business and Economic Success in Houston, Texas; and Yvonne Graham Garrison Edwards, principal of Fauché Learning Center in Los Angeles, California. We will then quickly transition to the second panel, which will address how to take the individual successes and cultivate them on a larger scale. These panelists include Dr. Eugene T.W. Sanders, Chief Executive Officer of Cleveland Metropolitan School District in Cleveland, Ohio; Dr. Gregory Thornton, Superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools in Milwaukee, Wisconsin; Dr. Marion Bolden, former Superintendent, Newark Public Schools in Newark, New Jersey; Scott Gordon, Chief Executive Officer, Mastery Charter Schools in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania; and David Banks, President of the Eagle Academy Foundation and founding principal of the Eagle Academy for Young Men in New York, New York. Full biographies of our panelists can be found inside your packets. After each panel, there will be a question and answer period. Thank you very much. Now we'll hear from our panelists.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Coleman, and as was mentioned, I'm the former Executive Director of Achievable Dream Academy, and I'm going to spend a few moments sharing with you who we are and what we do. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the CBC for conducting this session. And when we have an opportunity to share ideas and grow from those ideas, it really enhances the life of our children that we so dearly appreciate, but recognize that they are in a difficult situation with the educational system that we have right now. Achievable Dream Academy is a school, it's a public school in Newport News, Virginia, and unlike most schools, many people sometimes confuse us for a charter school or a magnet school, but we're neither of those. We are a public school that started out as a summer tennis program back in 1992, and consequently all of our children play tennis. However, we started out as a summer tennis program in 92, and 2 years later we and Walter Sigaloff, the founder of Achievable Dream, established a partnership with Newport News School District. And in that partnership, we decided that we would open up the Achievable Dream program. The Achievable Dream program consists of kindergarten through second grade school, a K-5 school actually that's broken down for kindergarten through second. The kids that are in the primary school actually are zoned for that community, zoned for our school. The kids in grades 3 through 5, particularly our third graders, come from all over the district, and that's why sometimes we're confused for a magnet. We have a criteria and a selection criteria, which I'll talk about in a few moments. And then we have a new middle high school, actually a renovated building that we have our middle and high school kids that are part of our program as well. The selection process for Achievable Dream is relatively unique. Walter Sigaloff, the founder, initially wanted to provide resources for those children that were underrepresented in our business community. And so to apply for Achievable Dream, we actually send letters out throughout our district for kids in the second grade that are eligible for free and reduced lunch. And with those kids that are eligible for free and reduced lunch, we have parent meetings where we can talk to parents about what the program will provide for them. There's a point system that we use, however, and that point system suggests that you will receive more points. You have a better opportunity to get to Achievable Dream if you're from a single-parent home. If you live in public housing, you get more points. Essentially, we're looking for those kids that represent the greatest risk factors in our school district, and they are the ones that usually have the opportunity to come into Achievable Dream. We are about 1,200 students strong from kindergarten through 12th grade. We also have kids that are part of our college program, which I'll talk about in a few moments as well. Here's some of the demographics of our school. 96% of our kids are on free and reduced lunch. As I mentioned, you have to be eligible for free and reduced lunch just to be invited to come to a parent meeting where you can learn more about our school. 80% of our kids are from single parents, and 99% of our kids are African American children. We focus on a framework that is very, very important to us called social, academic, and moral, and we call it the same education for all children. And I'll spend a few moments talking about that social, academic, and moral education, which really we find to be pretty unique. Socially, and the social component is really designed to help our children understand the expectations of the world, be able to communicate with kids outside of their community, communicate with people outside of their community. Every morning, as part of our social rotation, even before the social rotation, as children come into our building every day, the administrators are at the door shaking each child's hand. They receive a firm handshake, eye contact, and a good morning. So our children are taught, even in kindergarten, that it's important to look someone in the eye and shake their hands. We have what we call morning rotations, and all of our kids from 3rd grade to 12th grade will go through at least 1 week of these social rotations. Speaking Green etiquette class, where they're taught how to set a table, how to conduct themselves when they go to a restaurant. Speaking Green, green being the color of money, and it's not our intent to have them become materialistic, but we want them to know to get a job, you have to pull your pants up, and you have to speak proper business English. We also share with them that it's okay to speak slang when you're in your neighborhood with your friends, but when you're in school, a public place, or applying for a job, there are certain expectations that the community, the business community has of you, and so we try to make sure our kids are doing that. These other social rotations, I'll just breeze through them very quickly. Healthy living, we know that there's a high rate of asthma in our community, high blood pressure, so our kids are taught the food chain, those things that are important for their body, the things that they need to do to keep themselves strong, how important it is to take care of your family. When you're in the home, we try to make sure, again, that the healthy living is all about making sure that you as a person, physically and socially, are healthy. Financial know-how is something that we introduced to our high school kids last year because we knew that when they get offers to go to college, often they get credit cards, and we want our children to know that just because there's an ATM machine doesn't mean that there's money in there waiting for you. You've got to put money in there to take it out. And so we teach our kids how to budget. And then we try to provide them with a variety of enrichment experiences. The academic piece, again, the social piece is so important for our kids in our education system. The academic piece sort of speaks for itself. Curriculum alignment, those of you that are educators understand that if the state has a curriculum, it's our responsibility as teachers and administrators to make sure that our kids are following and our teachers are following the curriculum. And so curriculum alignment is a critical piece. We have an extended day program where our kids are in school 2 hours longer every day. We have 210 days of school as opposed to 180 days of school. And then we have Saturday school, which is so important. For those kids that are struggling academically, they're required to come to Saturday school. We have buses that pick them up to do that. The moral program, which is so important as well, their character development, we spend a lot of time. We have a dress code, we have military that come in and inspect their uniforms every day so that they can understand, they can relate to the proper dress, and particularly coming from the military community. The results are that our school has been fully accredited in the state of Virginia a year after we began, which is 1994, when we became a we became a full school accredited within the city of Newport News. 99% of our kids graduate from school on time. Less than 1% of our high school students have, less than half have below a 2.0 GPA. And out of 8 graduating classes over the last 8 years, 82% of our children are either in a full-year college or 2-year school, join the military because of the impact the military has had on us, and or go to a trade school or are gainfully employed. The framework that we use, as I close, the framework that we use at Achievable Dream is called the Social, Academic, and Moral, and I mentioned that already. However, that framework was designed by an organization called the Urban Learning and Leadership Center, and currently the Urban Learning and Leadership Center is spending time focusing on the social, academic, and moral in other environments. They've traveled across the country providing the input so that schools can plan on what the social, academic, and moral means to them. They're spending an awful lot of time in Louisiana now working with high poverty, high performing schools. And so when we look at what Achievable Dream is doing and what we're planning on doing, our goal is to make sure that our kids understand education socially, academically, and morally. As I close, I'd like Tonique Merrill, one of our students, to stand up. Tonique Merrill graduated from Achievable Dream. He started out with us in the 3rd grade. He is now a student at Howard University going into his junior year. We're very proud of him. He's also a tennis player. That was not our intent, but he happens to play tennis very well. And so I think he's number 6 on the tennis team. So we're very proud of Tonique and many of our other students that have done very, very well across the years. Thank you, Tonique, and thank you for listening.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cynthia Hughes Hanna, principal of Calhoun North Elementary School, located in the West Garfield area of Chicago. I too would like to give you some background information on the students who attend Calhoun. These are students who are in a very high drug and crime infested area. When I arrived at Calhoun, only 16% of the students were achieving at grade level. We went into that school, and by the way, this is Ms. Miles, one of the teachers who came with me from the very beginning, and we understood what we had to do. We had to change the climate. we had to change the culture. We had to make education important in that community. I often tell them that education to be from the community is one thing, but of the community is another. When they come to our school, they think that we are a private school. They think we are a Catholic school because we're located across the street from what is called Marillac House. It is a home for retired nuns and a social service agency. But we knew that we needed to first take care of cleaning up that environment. We needed to make sure that we put kids in uniforms. We needed to make sure that they understood that they are important to have a uniform, to understand that gang activity is not important, and to make them understand that we are not trying to educate you to graduate from grammar school. We are preparing you for life. And in saying that, we try to work with all areas of the children, socially as well as academically. We went out and we got partners, the Cook County Bar Association, which is an organization of African-American lawyers who provide school uniforms and culture trips. We also partnered with Lakeshore Links. It's an organization of females who provide etiquette classes as well as social activities such as dance classes, etc. But we had to change the mindset not only of the children, but of the parents. Because the parents had to understand that education is important. And to make sure that we got to the children, we had to first convince the parents. We have a morning school that starts at 7:30. And by the way, let me say, I have a very, very dedicated staff. They start at 7:30 and they end at 4:30 just with academics, and then we start the social activities. I'd like to talk about a plan that I put in place because I knew that those children are so low that I needed to just reach each and every one of those students. So I have a differentiated instruction rotation that we use. This is our daily academic plan. First of all, I want you to see the scores. When 2001, we were at 16%, and now at 2009, as you see, it's 74% of the students are at grade level or achieve higher than that. The basic rotation starts with the primary department, and what we ask of those primary students is we start our day with a bell ringer. And in that bell ringer, there are certain skills that are aligned to the Illinois standards. Then we incorporate Haggerty's Phonics. That's a program that introduces sounds to students where they're interactive with the teachers, and it is done every day except for Friday. The next rotation is what I call guided reading. In the guided reading, students, that's where, I'm sorry, forgive me, this is my first time, so I'm new to telling what I do. I just do what I do to help kids. Teacher-directed instruction. And what I did was I put components together that teachers can follow. And by the way, we might have a skill, and that skill is throughout the building. Every person, if I'm talking about inferencing, every classroom is talking or teaching inferencing from kindergarten, well, pre-K, because I have 3-year-olds, from pre-K to 8th grade. It's just done on different levels. And teachers have a way of doing that. This helps the kids and everybody in the building to be focused on skills. I don't teach the test, I teach skills needed that you can transfer in any subject. So the first thing we do is the teacher is working on modeling, They work on vocabulary because in order to read, kids have to have a strong vocabulary base. And that's something we emphasize. And these are the type of manipulatives that they use or can use in order to get that done. They have a rotation that they will follow in their classrooms. It's about 3 groups that they can use. Next is talking about the rotation. We implement technology a lot in everything that we do. Whether it's reading or math, we use computer skills, and that helps to build knowledge for those students. Not just academic, but technical knowledge as well. In the upper department, it's a little different. They too get a bell ringer, and after the bell ringer, the teacher goes directly into the instruction, teacher-directed instruction. And they, again, focus on vocabulary. They have overhead projectors, graphic organizers. They interact with kids. Kids speak back to them because that way you know if the kids have an understanding of what's being taught. I think the main focus for us is guided reading. And what happens at that point, you have small groups. The teacher interacts with every child in that room every day in a small group setting. Then they can understand if the kid understood the skill or not. So we put together in the guided reading program some things that they could do in a rotation. For instance, they can look at media passages, they can look at SRA kids. So those things are something that we needed to key in on and work with those kids' individual skills. For instance, the SRA kid, the kid has a pre-test and he works on his level independently. Study Island is a technology piece. They can work independently. They do the pre-test and they work individually, and the teacher comes behind them and makes sure that that kid is focused on that particular skill that we're working on for that week. I just want to let you know that it takes more than just a principal. It takes an entire community. It takes the parents and the entire staff. In my building, we don't have job titles. You may see me mopping the floor, and I don't have a problem with it, because I know that I'm there to make sure that these children are educated and they receive the education that they deserve. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Wilshire, and I'm the principal of Medgar College Preparatory School in Brooklyn, New York. I became principal at Medgar College Preparatory School 9 years ago. At that time, our school was Middle College High School, but today we are a 6 through 12 secondary school. I want to share with you some of the things that were instrumental in transforming our school from where it was then to where it is today. After 6 months at Middle College High School, we called for a retreat with all of the stakeholders. And the purpose of that retreat was that when I came to Medgar, we were only graduating 63% of our students, and only 15% of those students received a state-endorsed Regents diploma, and about 45% went on to college. The purpose of that retreat was to develop a plan for the transformation of our school into a college preparatory school. We should prepare all students to be successful in college. That was our single goal. Out of that retreat, we came out with some fundamental things. One, we decided that we were going to develop an early college program through a dual enrollment program with Medgar College. We also decided that we were going to start an advanced placement program. Also, we decided that we would develop a sports program, an athletic program, and also a performing arts program. Why? Because we believed that the best way to educate our child, we must have an holistic approach to education, not just the academics, but also the performing arts, the fine arts, and also athletics. At the end of 4 years, we extended our grades from 9 through 12 to 6 through 12. But the 6 through 12 program that we developed was what we call an early high school. And this was early high school in its real sense. In the 7th grade, students took currently taking 5 high school courses in global history, living environment, which is biology, integrated algebra, this is the first year high school algebra course, English, and Mandarin Chinese. We start our Chinese program in the 6th grade. At the end of the 7th grade, our students take the state examination now in 4 of those subjects: integrated algebra, geometry, living environment, and world history. The performance of these students, in many cases, have exceeded the students in the 11th grade and even in the 10th grade, those students who started school in the 9th grade. Then we move on to the 8th grade. In the 8th grade, we continue with our early high school program. Here in the 8th grade, we have 2 tracks. One, the physics track, and then the other track that we call the biological science track. Those students who go towards the physics track, they must pass the integrated algebra in the 7th grade, the geometry regions in the 7th grade with scores of 80 or above. And they must also do well in the other core subjects, which is Mandarin, English, the world, and the world history and the living environment. So in the 8th grade, we have our students taking high school physics, they take high school U.S. history, they take the Mandarin Chinese in the 8th grade, they take high school English, and they also, the other track will take now earth science, English, U.S. history, and Mandarin. And the students then take the Regents exam in all of these courses. I must tell you that what we have found and what has happened is that this year, for example, the students who took physics, a course that we are saying that African American students do not do well in the science, well, the grades in that physics Regents were from 70 to 99, which were really the highest grades in the school. So what we have shown is that with our early high school program, our students are able to take on a rigorous and intense curriculum in their early grades. But why did we create it in high school? Specifically, because if we maintain that the students must have an early college program in high school, if they must take on AP program in high school, where do they get that preparation for? That was one reason why we started our early high school program. Secondly, I am convinced that our students can do far more in the middle grades than they are currently doing. And we have really shown that this is so by the performance and the achievement of these students. In the upper grades, in the 9th grade, students begin to take advanced placement courses, and in our school, students do take AP Physics B in the 9th grade, subjects like pre-calculus in the 9th grade, human geography. So in the 9th grade, we find that our kids who started in the 6th grade begin to take advanced placement courses and pre-advanced placement courses in the 9th grade. The other group of students who enter our school in the 9th grade who were not a part of that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade cohort, they sort of begin at a disadvantage, but they make up grounds very fast. How do they do this? Every student in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and 9th grade is required to come to summer school for 6 weeks of rigorous course of study in the science, in terms of maybe physics, if they're taking physics in the 9th grade, and whatever courses that they're taking in the 9th grade, they do take those courses in the summer as preparation for those courses. 2 minutes, okay, so let me just sum up by saying this. This year, we won the National Inspiration Award by College Board for our outstanding college preparatory program and also our AP program. We currently offer 19 AP courses. This year, 512 AP examinations were written by 265 students. Our biggest area, believe it, is in physics, where we had 84 examinations were written in physics C, mechanics, and also physics B, electricity and magnetism, and physics B. Also, apart from the academics, we have also developed an outstanding not physical education, but athletic program. We are the New York City girls basketball Division A champion. We are the Brooklyn track and field champion for 2 years. We are also second in New York City in terms of track and field, and so on. Both our boys and girls have excelled in sports. Not only are they excelling in sports, but they're also excelling in the performing arts. We also won the National Hanban Asian Grant for our Chinese language program. All of these things we have done without any additional budget. We received no additional funding for our AP program. We received no additional funding for our athletic and our performing arts program. But I think we are able to succeed because of that deep belief in our students. We certainly believe that nothing will prevent our students from succeed. And if I may add, as an inner city school, we have no facilities. We don't have an athletic field, we don't have a gym, we don't have an auditorium. But that doesn't stop us from having a swimming team, from having a track and field, basketball, tennis, and all of those things, because we truly believe that we will not use anything as an obstacle to prevent our students from achieving. And what we notice, what we've proven, is that all children, if you give them a rigorous and intense curriculum and give them the support, the encouragement, and create a nurturing and supportive environment, they will succeed. Currently, we graduate 95% of our students for 2 successive years. And if I may add, it is not just the quality of our graduates. All of our graduates, more than 60% of our graduates have taken at least 1 AP courses, and they have all been accepted into colleges, into some of the top tier colleges and universities. And in this year was our first year, we had students admitted into 4 of the Ivy Leagues, not just 1 student, but several students. So what I'm saying, as an inner city school, we are 85% of our students are qualified for free and reduced lunch, where we have no facilities, where we get no extra funding from New York City Department of Education, we are able to achieve. And we will continue to achieve, but we would definitely achieve more if we had more resources. So, but the point that I want to make, is that believe in our students. If we believe in our teachers, believe in our community, and believe that the students who walk through that door every morning deserve a good education, and that we as educators, we're only public servants, and we're there to serve our students. That's why we're there. And we're really guided by that philosophy that our students comes first, and that we believe that all students can success, and we have shown that all students can succeed. Thank you. I wish if I had more time.
Good afternoon. I am Alice J. Black, Executive Principal of the Yvonne A. Ewell Townview Center in Dallas, Texas, a world-class high school. And I too applaud all of you for the hard work that you do. Being a principal is the hardest job in the United States of America. Yvonne A. Ewell Townview Center started some 20 years ago to be a school that promoted higher education for African American students. But because of the red tape to get into things, we had to get a judge to declare the school to be built. And Judge Barefoot Sanders declared that Townview will be built. And therefore, we have Townview Magnet Center, sits in the heart of Dallas, Texas, overlooking Dallas, Texas. Now you're looking at that going, wow, that is beautiful. But on the other side of the street, we have the ladies of the evening. And on the other side of the street, we have drug dealers. So we sit in the heart of the ghetto also, okay? We are comprised of 6 schools within a school. We have the School of Business and Management, the Schools of Health Profession, Judge Barefoot Sanders Law Magnet, Rosa Sewell School of Education and Social Services. They just renamed that school, that's why I'm having a hard time with that one. And School of Science and Engineering, and the School for the Talented and Gifted. All 6 schools are declared exemplary in the state of Texas. We have 4 blue ribbon schools: School of Business, School of Health Profession, School of Science and Engineering, and Talented and Gifted. There are 6 principals over those schools, but we work together as a team to make sure that all of the students in that school, that those schools receive what they need. We mirror the city of Dallas. A lot of you sitting there going, wow, but Dallas now is 60% Hispanic. So in our school, we have 57% Hispanics, 29% African American, 12% Indian, 9% white, and 4% Asian. What does all this mean? In the state of Texas, we have what you call TAKS. Texas Assessments of Knowledge and Skills. In their reading, you can see our targets for our African Americans, our Hispanics, and our whites. The kids succeeded our targets and our goals in those areas, in all racial backgrounds. However, if you could see, once again, 0.5, our African Americans still lagging behind. Can y'all see that? But we're beating them up. We're making them get to tutoring. On Sunday, Monday, we have tutoring every day of the week, but Sunday. In math, as you can see, these are the Texas TAKS scores for this year. In math, we succeed our goal of 90%. In science, we succeeded our goal of 90%. African Americans are still in there. Social studies, all of our students are 100% tax ready. However, our goal at Townview is to increase the number of students commended performance on the tax test. It's okay to pass the tax test, but when you get to commended, you're college ready, and I heard somebody talking about that up here. So our goal, the district goal for college readiness, is 23%. But however, we set our bar high. Our goal is 25% at the Yvonne A. Ewell Townview Center. As you can see, and the schools are very competitive, okay? So you can see all of our schools there and their goals. That is in reading commended, math commended, science commended. As you can see, this is our area of weaknesses. And I heard that again and again throughout the United States. That is our problem. That's what we need to deal with in science and mathematics. Social studies, we're fine. Now I raised that bar to 80% this year. How do we get there? Well, we provide professional development for all students. We have a collaborative planning period. A collaborative planning period is where teachers from different subjects get together. All of our Algebra 1 teachers, they sit down and they talk for 90-minute periods. All of our social studies teachers talk for 90-minute periods of time. And they work together as a team. We study the data, and we have prepared demonstration lessons. The teachers will demonstrate for each other. Sometime during the planning period, we do walkthroughs and we walk around. We're not about, I got you. We're about what can we do to make these students do better. We have technology demonstration integration. Collaboration is a best practice. We use bell ringers to support instruction. We have article reviews. A teacher would come in and say, I read this review, let's read it. So we'll read them. We have book studies. We specifically target those students who need extra help. We have cooperative teachers. We have contracts with students and parents before and after school. We have boot camp for all ninth grade students. Here we are working as a team. You see in the left corner, you see myself working with the math teacher and a science teacher. You see that's our data. It's all around this room. That's our war room. We put the data all around the room. We put the data of the high schools all around the room so they can see where we are. We're not all that. We got to do a little bit better. Okay, now we're working. We have our planning periods. Well, I take the teachers out on retreats. Sometimes you have to take them out of their environment. And if I get a little extra money, I take them to the hotel. We get on the floor. We can wear T-shirts. We can wear jeans. And we can talk about what are we going to do next year. 2 minutes, okay. Our students collaborate also. So I'm going to move through this fast. We prepare them for college readiness. Here are our PSAT scores. What we decided to do last year, we are now offering a PSAT class that we offer to the students in reading and math. It's our math PSAT scores. Our students are there. Writing, critical reading scores, SAT scores, writing scores, ACT scores, and we are college readiness. How do we do that? This is Dr. Gutman. Dr. Gutman is the president of Penn State in Pennsylvania. She visited the school, she recruited our students to go to Penn State. We also have our Congresswoman, Eddie Bernice Johnson, where our students come to the White House, the School of Law, and they get to visit with her. Ms. Johnson, Congresswoman Johnson, also have lecture series with our students. And our students have an opportunity to hear some of the renowned scientists and mathematicians in the world. She will call me up and say, okay, I have somebody coming this month, can you make sure this happens? So they come to our school and they talk to our students. Here are the mighty walls of the Townview Center. We have, these are our teachers in action. Ms. Sandra Cato, would you stand, Ms. Cato? She's with me today. Ms. Cato is a pre-calculus teacher. Mr. Winter Roach is a teacher of Algebra 1. And Mr. Kevon Spencer is with me also, but he's not in here today. He's a biology teacher in the School of Science and Engineering. We have days where we just get down with the students. Those are our principals, the law principal, Mr. Palagonia. He's helping the student with his clay. SEM student displaying their plant growth. TAG students work on labs. Teacher monitors health students. Our students take blood. If you need your teeth cleaned, just come by, we'll do that for you. Business teachers, Ms. Bob explained the business lesson. In the School of Education and Social Services, they have a hands-on lab for early childhood education. We have 15 3-4-year-olds to come to the school, and that's where I go when everybody beat up on me. I go read to the babies. They always tell me, I love you, Miss Black. So I feel better when I go down here. We have a mighty band. We have one of the top bands in Dallas, Texas. We have an orchestra. We have a choir. We have ROTC. This, about 2 years ago, we started an exchange program with Career. Seoul Career, Boogle Academy, and Seoul Career. 20 students and 2 teachers visited our school last year and got an opportunity to live with our students, to go with our students and do what we did. So therefore, this year, 20 students and 2 teachers will be going to Korea to attend their school, and that is a phenomenal program. Thank you for listening to me.
There is a place where we find unconditional love and acceptance. There is a place where everybody knows our name. There is a place where we find something bigger and grander than ourselves, a sense of community, a sense of belonging, something that tells us that we can be better than who we were when we entered into that environment. There, for our students, is the High School for Business and Economic Success. I'm the Executive Director, Lisa Berry Dockery, and I count it a privilege to serve under our pastor, Pastor Kirby John Hines Caldwell, and Dr. Roderick Page, the former Secretary of Education. This year, 700 students will drop out of the Houston Independent School District. 250 of them will call the High School for Business and Economic Success home. Our philosophy is a simple one. Whosoever will, let him come. Lottie, Dottie, and me. If you've been to jail, come on. If you have a baby, come on. If you've robbed a house, we still want you. If you find school uninteresting, there's still a place for you here. I don't know about any of you, but I thank God that I've lived long enough that I've made some mistakes. And but for the grace of God and 2 good parents, I could have found myself a dropout or in jail. I don't know about you. Y'all look good sitting here in your suits, all educated and sophisticated. But I bet if I were to follow some of you home, look under the bed or the mattress, talk to your mothers or your fathers about how you used to be, I might discover that some of you may not have always done the right thing. And so we created the High School for Business and Economic Success for those who had stumbled and who had fallen and who had struggled. We passionately pursue the students who have given up on themselves and the ones that the community has given up on. Our greatest joy is seeing the last become first. Many of our students are the first in their class to graduate high school. They're the first in their family to enter the workforce above the minimum wage. They're the first to get up and go to school every day. And we're grateful for that. I see a camera back there. I hope this is not being recorded, because I'm going to tell you a little story about a young man who attends our school. I was there late the first year we began 3 years ago, and I heard something hit the door, just bang. Beautiful glass door. I wasn't sure whether I should go to the door or not go to the door. It was late. There was no one there but me and my 2 boys sleeping on a futon upstairs. I finally decided to go downstairs. And there was a young man on the other side of the glass. He said, "Lady, please let me in. Please let me in." I should mention to you that we're also in a church building. And so he was trying to get into the church, not realizing the church was also a school. And so I'm standing there looking at him, and he's looking at me, and I'm safe on my side of the door. There's an alarm system in place. He couldn't get to me, and unless I opened the door, I couldn't get to him. About this time, I see flashing lights flying up and down Heatherbrook, which is the street that our school is located on in Houston, Texas. It took me a minute or two to realize they were looking for him. I finally decided to open the door. And I asked him, "What is it that you've done that has all of these police cars looking for you?" He said, "Man, they're not looking for me. I promise you they're not looking for me." I said, "Well, there's nobody out here but you and me, and they're not looking for me." Finally, he said, "I broke into a house in the neighborhood." He started to cry, and he said, "I've broken into a bunch of houses in this neighborhood." I then realized he was the person that I had seen the flyers about. There was crime in the community running rampant, and he was the one they were looking for. I happened to have some friends downtown, and together that night we wrote a contract. He promised he would come to school every day. I promised I would compensate those individuals whose homes he had broken into. This year, he will graduate from the High School for Business and Economic Success. Our philosophy is a very simple one: by any means necessary. Where we save those who are struggling to get a good education. A rising tide really does lift all boats. And we believe that until we help those who are failing, until we help those who are not succeeding, until we help those who are in trouble academically to succeed, this boat, this ship that we're on, will continue to sink. I want to thank everyone who's in this room who is helping young people to get educated and to rise above and to achieve. And I want to thank you for spending your time listening to us today. God bless you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm Yvonne Edwards. I'm the principal of Foshay Learning Center. And I figure if I get started before she sits down, I'll get myself a couple of extra seconds. As a principal of Fauché Learning Center, I consider it a great honor to have an opportunity to discuss transformational education in a global age. It gives me even more pleasure to raise the questions and to hopefully provide some answers to: how do we meet the needs of minority children in this fast-changing world? How do we conquer the technological divide and close the achievement gap between our minority students and the students of the world? How do we embrace the Black child and the Black family so that we are not left out of what was once called the American dream, but is now an international dream? How do we keep hope alive? How do we, as a public school, compete with the charter and private schools that often deplete us of our most brilliant and talented children and most committed parents? Well, the answers are very simple. We make our schools the best schools. We provide our students with a first-class world education. We offer the type of quality education that even most private schools cannot provide. We offer the NASA Summer of Innovation and Math and Science programs, as we did at Fauché this summer, where over 700 students, minority students, participated in hands-on technology and creative science projects. We not only train our teachers, but we train teachers from all schools, thus attracting the very best. We give our faculties and staff our faculties with caring, nurturing, competitive teachers that are committed to the students and parents in our communities. As administrators, we must create a culture of trust where the students, staff, and parents are able to emerge as leaders. We must search out mentorships that for our students and for our private and public partnerships that allow our students to experience success. We embrace and educate our parents as we continue to educate ourselves. We provide after-school and before-school programs that keep the children safe. We publicize our stories and we celebrate each victory. We stay together and work together until the job is done. We say yes when opportunities are provided by our political leaders, such as those afforded us by our very own Fauché alumna, Congresswoman Diane Watson. We establish ourselves as schools that are focused on international education, and we give our students opportunities such as trips to the nation's capital, where Fauché robotics students and graduates supported Congresswoman Watson as she pushed for more emphasis and monetary support for robotics and STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematical education. We do not quit. We have a robotics team at the high school level, and we start with our Lego team in the elementary and the middle school level. How do we cultivate students as leaders who are culturally aware, civically responsible, and empowered with 21st century competencies? We write grants, such as Computers for Youth, that put free computers in the hands of each 6th grade student and their families. We go to the newspapers and print out the top 10 paying highest careers and show our students the starting salaries of engineers. We then invest in our teachers and send them to trainings, such as Project Lead the Way, which is the nation's leading provider of rigorous and innovative science, technology, engineering, and math education for middle and high school students. We then establish the Project Lead the Way Pathway to Engineering at our schools, which is a 4-year high school sequence taught in conjunction with traditional math and science courses. We redesign our course offerings and classrooms and create computer labs with smart technology, such as smart boards. The high school students from our Technology Academy and our robotics team assist our school network engineer with the software and hardware installations, as well as serve as student mentors so that they get hands-on work experience. We then demonstrate this new technology as a tool that links us globally as our students watch the actual signing of the Memorandum of Understanding with Udi Molin, Science and Technology Academy from Cape Town, South Africa, witnessed by Congresswoman Diane E. Watson. This is our sister school. In this one instance, our students saw how they could communicate and actually see students from all over the world. No longer were they just a part of Fauché Learning Center, a school in South Los Angeles, but they were a part of a global nation. What a conversation they could have with their parents and guardians that afternoon. Fauché Learning Center is in the heart of South Central Los Angeles. In 1996, in an effort to address the needs of the community, Fauché restructured as a kindergarten through 12th grade learning center. It currently boasts 2,100 students on a traditional calendar. The demographics have changed, as in most schools, over the years, but the one constant is the low socioeconomic status of 82% of our student population. Although our students come from humble beginnings, we at Fauché are determined to provide our students with educational opportunities afforded to more affluent students. We have had such wonderful programs as box tops for computers, something everyone can do in their community to get computers and other services for their school. Diane Watson, our Congresswoman, introduced a program to our elementary students, PANWAPA. This was the impetus as we grew globally. We have our NGY Cyberjournalist ambassadors. They provide strategies on how to empower youth as journalists and a description of when a 21st century learner should be: academically prepared, literate in 21st century global skills, proficient thinkers, collaborative problem solvers, culturally and civically responsible, and media and technologically proficient. We are pursuing the International Baccalaureate. The International Baccalaureate program provides a more holistic approach on school reform and builds upon the concepts laid by Next Generation of Youth and PANWAPA. As I have now received the stop sign, I would just like to promote and remind everyone that during these difficult financial times, we must provide students and teachers opportunity to showcase the American spirit of ingenuity.
Thank you. Now is the question and answers segment of this panel. If you have a question, please come to the microphone.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
I just want to commend the panelists for this wonderful session. I heard often that about the changing demographics, and I was just wondering how are you guys preparing for that in terms of language and also the cultural competency and dealing with the parents of the students as well as some of the students?
Anyone wants to stand?
At Fauché, realizing the need to not only prepare all of the students, but especially our students who only speak one language normally, unless they are from Africa or other generally, what we decided to do is in our kindergarten, as I heard someone else say, we are providing Chinese or Mandarin starting at the kindergarten level is through our elementary school. We then added in the middle school French and Spanish and a third language, so that our students, our African American students, are no longer the only people in America speaking one language. At the same time, we must also look at our brown students and realize that we have to also assist them with getting a grasp on the language so that they can also achieve, as well as take regular English classes. And we have to prepare these minority students. My school now, years ago, it happened to be 100% black. Now it is 80% Latino and 20% African American. So it's something we all have to struggle with.
The High School for Business and Economic Success is 20% Latino, ESL, English as second language speaking students. We require that every student in our school be able to speak English and that every English speaking child in our school be able to speak Spanish. Because we are so close to the border, we have found that it is important that everyone be bilingual.
At Medgar College Preparatory School, we offer 3 languages. Students are required in grades 9 through 12 to take 3 years of either Chinese, French, or Spanish, and they can take all of these courses up to the advanced placement level. In grades 6 through 8, they all take Mandarin Chinese.
In Yvonne, at Yorktown Youth Center, we have several languages. We have Latin, French, German, and Spanish that the students could take. And we are looking into Japanese, Chinese. Those teachers are hard to find, so we have to educate the young people that are going out today to move in that area.
Okay, thank you, sir.
We would like to thank this august body for sharing what you have shared with us. Since I just left New York in the Bronx, and it doesn't matter whether I was in the Bronx, but I just happened to have been on what you call a community farm, which is called Tuckwa Farm, with Brother Abu Talib. Why Tuckwa Farm? Too often in our center cities, the grocery stores are too often way away sometimes from the people who live in the hood. What is happening at your schools? And I mentioned the Bronx school, the Bronx area, because I was just recently there and just got back in the city. Whether it's up from the hood in the Los Angeles area, or whether it's whatever it is, what are we striving to do to nurture our young people and ourselves in the area of engineering in food, clothing, and shelter, in communications, defense, and transportation. But my focus question is, and share, is on the area of food, because we all eat. And since some of us heard First Lady Michelle Obama in terms of the obesity and other things that's running rampant in our communities, What are we doing to prepare ourselves and our young people in the area of food production lead-up skills for a global society in their own hood? Thank you.
At Calhoun North, what we are math and science. We emphasize math so that they would have a strong background. The students at my school, we have 80% of the students meet or exceed in math. We had very, very high science scores. I knew that if they needed to be successful, that we had to work on those skills in particular first, because those are the skills where they could give back to the community, that they would be able to matriculate through college if they could master those skills. So in saying that, if those children have those types of backgrounds, then they can be prepared agriculturally, because as I said, we deal with science, plants. When you walk in our building, you see plants and animals everywhere. In every room, you have to have a plant or an animal so that we could expose them to that type of activity. So hopefully, in giving them that type of background, they will become citizens that want to give back and are able to do those types of things.
The High School for Business and Economic Success received a $30,000 grant from the Aetna Foundation this year to help our students to learn more about healthy eating. We too were honored to see Michelle Obama, our First Lady, talk about healthy eating and farming, and we're trying to get to the place where we can pull a patch of land in order to have our students to do that. We haven't reached that point yet, but we have been talking to them about the importance of eating fruits and vegetables, getting your proper rest, taking care of yourself physically.
An achievable dream very similar to that. I mentioned during my presentation that we have a healthy living class where we're teaching our children the importance of nutrition. We're teaching them the importance of taking care of their bodies. Even though we haven't gotten into producing food, we focus a lot on STEM, as been mentioned already, science, technology, engineering, and math, so that our children, our students will become a little bit more independent and understand the environment that they're in so they can work towards whatever it's going to take in this millennium to become independent.
At Fauché, we have a nutritionist who comes from the district, and each teacher that commits to do a lesson plan on healthy eating actually gets a different healthy fruit or healthy vegetable each month to give to the class, and the nutritionist comes and shows students also how to prepare healthy meals. At the same time, the district has really concentrated on our school lunch program. 82% of our students are on free and reduced lunches, and a lot of the fats and all of the things that were detrimental to the students have been taken out of their diet at school. We can no longer sell junk food. We don't have sodas. We really emphasize healthy eating, as well as in physical fitness classes. They must pass the physical fitness test before they graduate from high school.
At the School of Health Professions, we have a fair day where different hospitals and nurses and doctors would come in, and we not only educate the students, the parents are invited also to come out and work with us on that. We had a student last year in the School of Talented and Gifted to do her thesis on healthy eating, and therefore she was very instrumental in getting a lot of things out of the junk food area for our school.
At our school, Medgar College Preparatory School, we actually do not do anything outside of what the New York City Department of Education has done in terms of improving the quality of nutrition in the school. It is perhaps something that we need to start to look at as to how we can add it to what has already been done by the Department of Education.
Thank you.
May I just add my B part? I'm Professor Tariq Oduno. I'm known for there is no culture without agriculture, and I would hope that the George Washington Carver model be tweaked, because it sounds like from this great august body that the applied arts of the producing of our own food, clothing, and shelter perhaps is where it is. And as one who grew up in Beaumont, Texas, we would go to the Southeast Texas State Fair, and maybe with you wonderful educators, a little bit more encouragement to go into the environments where these things are happening, which will just add to the wonderful work that you are most definitely doing. And so perhaps when we come back for the 45th anniversary of the BRAINTRUST, we will have some agriculture engineers. Is that okay?
That's okay.
And in some other areas where we are producers for ourselves, because our people did these things irrespectively of their ethnicities. Is that okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity, because the people who feed themselves are people who will educate themselves.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm very excited to be here. I'm not an educator, but I'm the chair of a charter school. So this is all new stuff to me. However, I heard what all of you have done to have high achieving schools. My question to any one of you would be, how involved, and if any of you have any tricks to get parents involved besides offering dinners on an evening, and also that contract. I mean, we tried the contract, but in New York, the parents now, they all know that it's not enforceable. So they don't come to the meetings, they're not at the schools. So anyone with some tricks or some ideas to get parents involved?
Me. Please, me.
Good.
Have you ever heard anyone have to beg anyone to go to the nightclub?
No.
They just show up, right?
Right.
You open a new club, put up some strobe lights, people show up. Why? Because they have a good time there.
Okay.
I, like you, do not have an educational background. I'm not amongst the educators. I'm a preacher who runs a school.
I see.
And what I discovered is that if you make your school a place that people want to come, you don't have to trick them into being there. They'll come. And so we do it by talking to the parents about what they need, by talking to the students about what they need, and then supplying their needs, making it a place they want to be. And you don't need a contract for that.
Well, at Calhoun, we work through the children. We have the teachers to have the students with incentives. We do use incentives, and they're very competitive. Primary, intermediate, upper grade teachers. We have them to encourage the parents to come out, and the classroom with the highest percentage of parents, they may have an ice cream social. Now remember, I have 3-year-olds to 8th grade, so it's a little bit different. They enjoy that. We do make it fun. We talk about it. We also let them know how important it is for their parents to be there when we ask them to show up. And I found when I first went into school that I couldn't get that across. And then I realized I need to go through the kid. Because when that kid bugs that parent enough, they are going to show up whether they want to or not. And then if they know that everybody in my classroom, parent was there but you, and they start to feel bad. So the next time we do it, or if I see you, I'm a hands-on principal. So I'm standing at the door and I'm saying, didn't see you last night, Mom, what were you doing? And they start telling me, Miss Hannah this, Miss Hannah that. So I get involved. I say, next time, I want you there. and that has helped us a lot.
In Achievable Dream, we have a night school program for our parents. We have 2 nights a week, we have parents that come to work on their GED. We have parents that take introduction to computers. We teach them how to work on the internet. We find that parents are role models, obviously, for their children. We know that they have limited resources, so the resources that we have available at the school, we make available to our parents also, so that they do feel welcome, as has been mentioned, and they do feel like not just the child, but we care about the parent as well. We are all one big family, and we try to get that message to the parents by getting them to come out to the school.
At Uvalde Townview Center, our parents are invited, and they are also part of our budget. When we have budget meetings, when we get our budget for the year, I ask the parents to be a part of it, so they'll know how much money we receive, what the money is going for. They need to know that we do a lot with what we get. And so once they become involved, and I'm always visible. You've got to be out and about all the time. And I just find that making them a part of the booster clubs and being a part of the money was a great factor for me.
Some of the things that we do, we have AP night, where we have all of the parents usually turn out for AP information night. In the 6th grade, we have Bring a Parent to School, where each parent is required to spend at least 1 day shadowing their child in the 6th grade. And we also have our Student of the Month breakfast and our National Honor Society induction ceremony. And all of these things, parents really come out because it's in their interest. Yeah.
What I found is we were told, well, our African American parents are not going to come. That was absolutely not true. Our children and our parents, in many cases, have heard so many bad things about their children that if you celebrate any victory, when the child does well on the CST and improves their score, we had a large ceremony. 3/4 of the auditorium was filled with African American parents and the children's families. They are so happy to come out to hear something good about their child that if you celebrate their victories, they will come.
Thank you. Before we take the next question, I'd like to recognize Congressman Bobby Scott if he wants, and Chairwoman Barbara Lee, who will be back. Okay.
I'll make some comments at the end.
Okay.
Thank you all for the wonderful insight. I guess I'm not so concerned with students who excel nationally. I want to know about students like unruly students, troubling students. What are some things you guys can do to help them see their way through? Maybe some examples. I know you had an example of the example. Just some insight on that.
Well, he referred to students who are in danger of failing, academically at risk, behaviorally at risk. Our academically at risk student, we begin to address those needs after the first 27 days in school by having that ongoing parent-teacher conference. When students normally break the school rules, for example, instead of me suspending them for 5 days, I would have them maybe attend indefinite detention until they improve their grades and so on. So, and I've found some of those things to be very effective.
I think, go ahead.
Our approach is probably a little more unorthodox. We love our students. We plain, flat out, love the hell out of them. We go to their games. We are on their Facebook pages. We help their families when they can't pay their light bills or gas bills or water bills or phone bills. We let them know that we're a part of your life. We're there to lift them up, not to beat them down. We let them know on no uncertain terms that we love them and there's nothing they can do about that. We are determined or have discovered that every child not only can learn but wants to learn. And so when you create an environment for them where they feel they'll be successful, they will come and they will succeed.
Just want to add that, as Sister Preacher just mentioned, it is important for us to love our children in school environments because many of them very often don't get that in the community that they live in, and so it's so important that we do that. I also want to take this opportunity. This is again the young man that graduated from Achievable Dream, Tony Merrill. And Congressman Scott, now that you're here, I wanted you to know, I think related to his question really is his desire next summer not to go away and do internships, but to do something with kids in the Washington, D.C. community. He grew up at Achievable Dream where we taught kids how to play tennis, and that was our hook. And he's trying to establish some type of a hook. So he'll be talking to you later after this session is over. He's right there, Tony Merrill.
Once again, I'd just like to emphasize the importance of positive behavior supports. It's a program that we do in the Unified School District. Each day, we have raffles at the end of the day to reward positive behavior. It can be just as simple as bringing your book to class. You turned in some glasses that you might have found. And we go out into the community, work with our partners, and give very simple things that actually mean a lot to children. Each day I open with somewhat of a meditation in which I give them positive words of encouragement, and we just try to live by the secret at our school in terms of thoughts or things, and that everything must be positive. And it really helps those children that are not feeling very good about themselves.
At Calhoun, we provide extra activities. We went out and got partnerships. As I said before, the Cook County Bar Association provides trips to Allen Ailey plays, college tours. They get them uniforms. If we have kids that can't afford uniforms, gym uniforms, etc. The Lakeshore Links provide etiquette classes, take them out to fine dining. Also provide Saturday dance class to get them ready socially, because you can get a kid ready academically, but he will not perform well if he is not ready socially. So we try to teach to the total child, and I understand your concern because I seek those type of children who are struggling, and we work with them, we give them mentors, we have clubs and programs, boys to men programs, where our male teachers work with our male students, and we have female teachers that take them to activities that sororities may give on Saturday, and etc. So we get involved with them, not just academically, but socially.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. We would like to make an announcement. The last three in line right now are the last three that we will be accepting questions from.
They smarter till they get to 14 years, and then the kids stop. They give them one graduation, and the kids think that they're proud. They don't want to go no further. That's her grade, the 8th. You 3 to 8, that's it.
We go, the students go, start from pre-K, 3-year-olds, to 8th grade.
That's true.
However, I'd let them know that I'm not trying to just graduate you from the 8th grade. I'm preparing you for life. And so what we stress is that those students attend either type of high school that could prepare them for the particular area that they're interested in. We have college fairs. We take them on college tours. We have professionals to come in to speak to them, because if they're not exposed to those type of programs, then they don't know what type of programs are available to them. So that's something that we try to look at, different types of careers. We don't push necessarily saying a 4-year college, because everybody may not be 4-year college material. However, we tell you you must have training. So you can be a carpenter and make more money than Ms. Hannah can imagine. You can make more money as an electrician than Ms. Hannah could ever have. But you have to have some type of training, and so that's what we push.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you guys? My name is Ori Ward, and I am Vice President for Programs and Development of a financial literacy nonprofit out of Atlanta. And we specialize in peer-to-peer models for high school and college students. My question specifically is for the evaluation model that we use in America. For the last 3 years, we've been doing studies to find out exactly what is the relevance of our model. Let me be more concrete. A standards-based evaluation model versus a project-based evaluation model. What I want to know from you guys is, in terms of your professional opinion, what model do you think would be more efficient and more effective for our students? The problem that we're having is that students just what they're learning isn't relevant. They're dealing with so many personal issues. My mother's a crackhead. My dad's not around. You're trying to get them to learn their timetables. They're having a relevancy issue. And we're finding it difficult to enforce standards, be it No Child Left Behind or whatever, because they're not realistic standards versus, let's say, a project-based evaluation system. When you all go to work, okay, what happens is that you're evaluated based on the work that you do. The skills that you have are assumed, and with those skills, you are evaluated based on how well you can apply, how well you can perform. That type of, it doesn't say, well, if you don't know exactly what we're telling you, you can't do rote memorization and spit it back to us, you're a failure. That doesn't happen in the workforce. That doesn't happen in corporate America. They meet people where they are. That's the difference between the evaluation models that I'm talking about. And so let me get to the question specifically. Do you think as a country we are using an effective evaluation model, i.e. standards-based, or should we try to something else, some alternative evaluation model so that we can actually make progress in our education system?
Let me say first that the two are not mutually exclusive. We've found in our school that although we've got to adhere to the standards, and although there are standards that the state of Virginia, where we reside, where we come from, there are standards that we have to meet to be considered, quote unquote, a successful school. We also recognize that project-based instruction gets the student involved with their education. It gets them the opportunity to see what they want to do, how they want to do it. We give our children an opportunity really in the 9th and 10th, 11th, 12th grade to look at careers and start aligning them with the business community. For instance, if someone does want to be a plumber, we try to have our 11th graders spend at least an hour with a plumber so that they can understand what it entails to be a plumber. If they want to be a lawyer, we try to align them with a law firm. We've just started doing that in the last 3 years, but we feel that it is important. So the standards are critical because we want to be considered in our state and in our city a successful school by those standards. We've got to play that game. But projects we know are important as well. We know that making sure that our boys particularly are engaged in education and engaged in caring about how a product may be made is important to them. So we try to mend both of them together.
At our school, Fauché Learning Center, we have several academies, and in all those academies, there is project-based learning. At the same time, we have received a State Department grant, thanks to many of our people here on the Hill, and those students will be traveling to South Africa. Obviously, they will be doing some projects there as a group. At the same time, we must realize that the students have to take the SAT, they go to law school, they have to take the LSAT, and many other, their driving tests. Those are not project-based. They are, you must be able to pass that test. So it's extremely important that they get training in both areas.
We want to see how well our school is doing in terms of the nationally. So we are big on advanced placement, so we're trying to encourage all of our students to take as many advanced placement courses as possible. All of our students take the SAT, and all advanced placement courses, those students who are registered for those courses, they take the SAT too. I think that is the closest we can come to a national standard in terms of measuring how well our students are doing when compared to the rest of the country.
I think we have to do both. However, we have to have a paradigm shift. Project-based learning is fairly new. We got to go back and educate the professors in college to teach the teachers how to do that. Because we got to shift the paradigm, because in this world you can't work alone. You got to work with the team. So therefore you need both. And therefore we have to shift the paradigm and start thinking about what's the next step for project-based, because it is so new to everyone. And in order for the teachers to get it, the professors have to change their mindset. So we have to take people like us to go out and teach the professors about project-based learning. It is no longer where you can sit in front of a child and read the book. You will lose them. You have to have a dog and pony show every 7 minutes. They are used to moving their hands. They are tactile, kinesthetic. And if we're not that, you lost it.
How you doing? I currently work for a nonprofit, the Heart of America Foundation, and our goals is to promote literacy, communities, and service. And one of our main projects or programs is that we travel around the country and we rebuild libraries in urban elementary schools. And a lot of times in these elementary schools, the demographics are everybody's reading at like 36% reading level, math, writing, everything. So it's like I see the education system is kind of like failing our students. I'm a recent graduate of Howard University School of Education, one of the rare males who was in the school. And I spend a lot of time volunteering in the community and working with kids and mentoring. And last year I spent a lot of my time mentoring a 5-year-old who I had worked one-to-one with in the AmeriCorps Jumpstart program, which focuses on improving language, social, and literacy skills. One of the things I noticed that my partner child, he graduated from the program and he went to elementary school, and the first or second week in elementary school, they kicked him out of school. 5 years old, let me remind you. I'm wondering, are there any programs set up for kids that they call problem childs? Because I think that for him, and he's a smart kid, and I think the easy way out is that they always want to put the kids in special ed, and he's not special ed at all. He's just, at that age, he kind of absorbs his environment, and he was adopted, and his mother was a substance abuser, and so it kind of makes him, a lot of times he has trouble focusing, and I'm the only one he would really listen to. So when I would go into the school, the teachers would just send him to me and, you know, say he's like 5 of them. So, and they always leave him to do his own thing. So when I come in, he knows that, okay, it's time to start learning for real. So I'm just wondering what programs are out there for kids to get that extra help that they need without having to be sent to these special ed programs when they're clearly not special ed. They just have problems they're dealing with at home.
Our whole school is for problem kids. That's all we do. In terms of the reading, we have a reading room. Some people call it a library, but we call it a reading room at our school. And the biggest joy for me is seeing them steal the books. 50 Cent's book, gone. LeBron James' book, gone. So what I do is I find out what they're interested in. And then we purchase books en masse. We put them in the room. There's no check-in, check-out system. You can read it in the room. If you happen to take it home, that's fine. I hope you bring it back. But if you don't, I'm glad you're reading. They will read. Authenticity and relevance are the two main words that we've used. And I'm going to steal this positivity over here. I hadn't been using that one, but I'm going to take that back home with me. Because we found if we're real with them and we make learning relevant to them, then they'll figure the rest out. A lot of that behavior, the behavioral problems we see are boredom. They don't see how this applies to me. What difference I still can't figure out what difference calculus has made in my life. And I'm grown. I'm just saying.
I believe that we need more of you. We need more males to go into education. We have very few males in education. And when you have a 5-year-old child and all he sees is Anglo females, I mean, he'll act up to go home. So he needs somebody in his life like you. Please continue to teach. Please continue to teach.
In my building, I have several male teachers and staff. I make it my business to make sure that I employ them because they need the role models. Do I have difficult kids? Yes. But we provide structure. We have them to understand that we will work with you. And I think that's important. Not just someone coming in as yourself, but each teacher. If that kid is difficult, okay, this is your kid now. This is your kid. And we try to change some of the things that they do, change their behavior. We applaud success, any success. If you are now sitting down in your seat, I'll pass by and say, wow, I cannot believe you are in your seat. How about that? And so that's the type of environment I have. And I think it works because, as I said, my male students teachers get involved. They will load up. I will have all of my guys load up and go to the basketball game. And my male teachers, they take them and don't have a problem with that. So I think that we do have to have more role models, and we have to have people with positive attitudes that everyone can learn regardless to their situation.
Yeah, let me first congratulate you on being an educator. I started out in the corporate world. I was not always in public education. I didn't go into public education until I was 45 years old. And then after doing that, and I've been doing it for 17 years now, but then after doing that, I found that teaching second grade at Marshall Elementary in Newport News, I was the only male in the building. The janitor was a female, everyone. And in fact, the female teachers were used to going into the boys' bathroom because there were no men around when the boys were in there playing. We simply, however, have failed on several levels when it comes to going back and nurturing our children. I worked for IBM, and many of our people in the corporate world have forgotten where we came from. I grew up in the projects of New York, and we know and we recognize that there's a shortage of men like yourself that's interested in working and helping kids just by the nature of the questions you ask. We wish we had all the answers, but we really don't. The reality is that we have to work harder as administrators, as educators, to encourage more of our African American men to take a look at being an educator, because there's some certainly an honor in that, but there's also some satisfaction that one will gain. So you've got to share it with all your friends. I used to go on Hampton University's campus for those kids that were not sure what their majors they were going to be. I would ask them to try teaching just for 5 years and then move on to the career that you're really, that you may be more interested in. So thank God for you, but we need more of you.
Mama, you can say your point.
I'm sorry.
But she's going to be introduced.
Okay, hold on, Mama. You're going to be able to say your point.
I am a retired school teacher.
No, hold on. We want to introduce you because you're a very special person.
Now, Miss Annette Bryant would like to share a poem with us.
Thank you. Now, we need to reach the parents, too. Our parents aren't doing what they all are supposed to do.
Well, tell it.
Now, my son here, he graduated from college. That's my daughter up there. And he told me, Mama, no, sit down, but I'm going to make him get up. Come here, daughter.
Did you read my biography? You will see that this is my inspiration.
Thomas Dunbar, who lived right after slavery. He was not a slave, but his parents were slaves. He was the first great poet that we had. And he wrote this poem. All right, now this, you be the counselor and tell me, you bring me my son, you called him somewhere where he was supposed not to have been. He should have been in school. Bring him to me. Get up. Oh, come on.
You're role playing here.
Use the mic.
Okay. Where did you find my son?
Other than where he was supposed to be.
Thank you. Look here, Tom. Ain't this awful? Found our son too off to school. Don't you know that you are growing up to be a regular fool? Where's the books that I done bought you? Now you look here, boy. You tell me quick. Where's that Webster Blueback speller and that brand new arithmetic? Yeah, I was thinking you in the schoolroom of learning, and bless your soul, you out in the street of rambling. Boy, can't you do as you am told? I was trying so hard to raise you, to be a credit to this year's race. But you are trying heap much harder for to come up in disgrace. Now these are days when men don't get to the top with a hook and a crook. I'm telling you, boy, they's got to get the standing from learning what's in them math, science, and other books. Now, ain't you see them high school dropouts going to them fast food places early as soon as light, working there for low-paying jobs from the morning till the night. Now, they work all their lives for low pay. And how they manage, only heaven knows. And when they get old, tired, and retire, they don't own nothing but they clothes. And ain't you see them educated people in the office, in the school? Don't you know? They just goes to work about 8 each morning. And bless your soul, they's out by 4. Now they just does a good day's work and does that by some easy means. And them gals sit up there and play the piano on them printing press machine. Child, them folks knows how to fiddle, how to use that little pen, and they knows that science book and the history book from the beginning to the end. Now that's the effect of education. And that's the thing that's going to rule. Get them books, you lazy rascal. Get back to your place in school.
To my colleagues, Chairman Payne, and to Congressman Bobby Scott, to the very distinguished educators and panelists who are here present, ladies and gentlemen, let me first acknowledge my aunt, uncle, and cousin who are here with us. The parents are from California, and the daughter now lives in Maryland, so it's good to see you all here. And it's my honor to address you at this annual legislative conference. I want to thank you and welcome you to the Congressional Black Caucus's Education Brain Trust. As has been stated by our chairman, this was also the brainchild of my predecessor, the Honorable Major Owens from New York, so it gives me special pride to be here today. I'd like to extend a special thanks to Dr. Michael A. Wiltshire, who is the principal of Medgar Evers College Preparatory School in my home district in Brooklyn, New York. And Medgar Evers certainly serves as a testament of how a good principal, teachers, parents, and the community can successfully create a positive, results-oriented school and educational environment. I'm very pleased that Dr. Wiltshire was able to make it here today. Our nation's graduation rates are far too low, and I know I'm preaching to the choir and it's all redundant, but 1 in 3 students who enter 9th grade fails to graduate from high school in 4 years. The statistics are worse for African American and Hispanic students, In New York City, almost half, one out of two, every other, however you prefer to view this, every other African American and half Hispanic student fails to graduate from high school in 4 years. And it is apparent that our current educational system poorly serves children of color and extracts a tremendous socioeconomic cost, not only to minority communities, but also to our greater civil society. It is why I am so excited this year. We have chosen to focus on the positive things that our students in their schools are doing. We are focusing on schools and policies that work, schools that are graduating. Hear me when I say graduating, high-achieving American students in 4 years. Today, we've heard from experts and practitioners who have shared their knowledge of what works to ensure that our students are prepared to succeed in school and in life. I hope that this afternoon's discussion empowers each and every one of you by providing not only insight into what is working in our schools, but more importantly, provide you with the tools needed to fix broken schools. It is my hope that you will take these tools back to your hometowns and use them in your schools. If we come together, work towards change, all of our children can graduate on time, and all of our schools can be like the high-performing schools that you will learn more about throughout this Brain Trust. So let me again thank you for coming, and I look forward to your feedback from this very enlightening discussion. I wanted to just close by saying that there was a young brother that just stood up here and asked a question about project-based versus performance-based, and it just sort of took me back to some of our most educated predecessors and ancestors, those folks who learned to read by the page of a Bible in a corner with a candle and became excellent representatives of our community. How they treasured the ability to learn to read so much that they risked their lives so that they could become educated and they could liberate others. If we could only pull on that when we think about education today, we think about all of the technology and all of the funding. Well, you know, those folks had no money. They didn't have shoes. They didn't even have the right to be called human beings. What they had was an acknowledgement of their existence, and they knew there was a tool out there that if they used it, they could empower themselves. I think we need to step back a moment because the key to our success really resides within us and how much we truly want to make things happen for our young people. How much we're willing to sacrifice to make it happen and not point fingers and say, well, they not doing, or the politicians aren't doing, or the government ain't doing. We need to ask ourselves, what are we doing? Can we spare an hour to teach a child to read? Can we give charitably books and tools? Can we mentor a teacher who has that problem child in their class? Can we help a neighbor who is struggling with their child because they were not properly educated? You see, oftentimes we point to parents and we say, what are these parents doing? Well, you know what? These parents are also products of a Brooklyn educational system. In New York City, we had a policy called social promotion that no one raised a question about until we graduated generations of people who were given a degree because they aged out of the system, not because they were educated. So we need to really check around us and see what we can do in our small way to add to what needs to be done, yes, policy-wise, yes, resource-wise, but understand that there were generations that came before us that did not have the luxuries that we have today and were able to make such a difference, so much so that we stand on their shoulders today. Let me also say that the relevance that we seek is also the relevance that's missing in our curriculums. You know, we talk about the education of children, but they don't see themselves in the materials they read. They don't see themselves in the conversation taking place in the classroom. For some reason, the struggle of African American people in this country has been barred from the education of all Americans, quite frankly. It's so much so that in Texas, it's okay to change the transatlantic slave trade to the triangular trade. Well, we did go through something as a nation. We did have chattel slavery in America. And all that we're talking about in terms of education is freeing people's minds. And when we all understand that there's much to learn and to gain from understanding that experience, which is intricate to the American experience, then maybe, just maybe, those young black boys won't be so bored in school. God bless you. Enjoy the rest of the BRAINTRUST.
Thank you, Congresswoman. We have been joined by Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas. If we could get the second panel to come on up to the stage, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. We will have it in order as they come forward. It is a delight to be able to be here this afternoon and to join my colleagues. By a show of hands, is this a positive and good thing to be doing? Let me just see the hands. Is this what we should be doing, the right thing to be doing? Yeah, let's make some noise. Because I know that this has been a long day and you have had a wonderful expression of presentations earlier. My name is Sheila Jackson Lee. I represent the 18th Congressional District. In my district, there are a number of institutions of higher learning, including Texas Southern University, which is the product of Heman Sweat and the discrimination against African Americans who could not go, as you well know, to equal schools or schools that belong to the majority community in years of segregation in the South. And so I come from a history where sometimes bad was all we had. But out of that lemon, we made lemonade. And I don't want to try and have one young person in the room say, here they go again, starting to talk about the old days. No, I'm giving us some formulas for the fact that when we had lemons, we were rocking and rolling. And the folk who went through those systems with those tatted books, for some reason, had another element that allowed them to climb up to the mountaintop. So I'm very glad to be here to thank those who have presented and to acknowledge my colleagues who are here today. The distinguished gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Payne, the distinguished gentleman from Virginia that is here, Mr. Scott, and certainly the gentlelady from New York, Congresswoman Clark, who has given us a very fine introduction. My words are simply to frame it in this manner, to cite some of the good things that are happening, but also to cite to you that although we have come this far by faith, we have many more miles to travel. I am gratified that you had the pleasure, and I know that you did, and we were voting and in meetings on the floor of the House, but you had the privilege of listening to one of my constituents, Lisa Berry Dockery, the Executive Director of the High School for Business and Economic Success in Houston, Texas. And somebody is shouting out because, stand up, Lisa, again. There you go. I'm going to put her on the road. Is that all right? I'm putting her on the road. I want you to know how hesitant she was, but there's nothing like the order of Congress to call down and say, you'll be held in contempt if you do not show up. And so keep on applauding her because we're going to be matching up her talents. I'm excited about her school, and what I like about it is that it takes the premise that there are no throwaway children. Can anybody just say that with me? We in the classroom. There are no, let's say it loud again. There are no, there are not.
Yes.
We've got to find a way, whether it's charter schools or whether it's good public schools, to ensure that our children learn. So let me just say this. We've had some good news in Houston, Texas. When I left, the Houston Independent School District had been nationally recognized for 19 schools that had been high performing for 3 years, and they were all public schools. So there can be things that can be done. At the same time, we are plagued with closing neighborhood schools. That is not a way to make children comfortable. And though we were used to the busing, I'm ready to pull everybody back home and make the neighborhood school that you go to the best school that it can be. Let the neighborhood school be the community school. Aldine ISD, one of my school districts, Hambrick Middle School and Stevens Elementary School have been named the 2010 National Excellence in Urban Education Award winners from the San Diego State University National Center for Urban School Transformation. Good works on public schools. I have charter schools in my district, Wallop, which is a school that is founded by Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. All of you know KIPP, you know the Yes Prep, and you know Harmony. Harmony is a school that was founded by Turkish Americans. All of those are public charter schools that many of you have in your own district. One form of ways of exerting excellence. But at the same time, my call is for those same schools to partnership with public schools. If any of you saw a movie that is about to come out, or an excerpt that was about to come out, you saw the process, I believe, in New York, and my colleague is gone, where there's a lottery for families to show up and hope their child's name comes up for the best schools. Is that the way to educate America's children? That you leave some children along the wayside of disappointment, not because they don't have the credentials, because we don't have the space. I know that Cheryl McNair, another of my constituents who's here, understands that our children can learn math and science, and I'd like her to stand up. She has a wonderful program. She is the wife of the late Ron McNair, who was lost, as you well know, in the shuttle explosion, and she has taken his memory and his legacy to be able to treat and to teach our children math and science. Doing that so that if there are any networkers in here, you'd be able to do so. The message that I believe is most important as we begin to listen to the experts that are here is how do we capture and save the public schools and raise them to high performing? This is a good news forum, but I'd like us to be part of being challenged by the good news. It is clear that the funding gap between charter schools and traditional schools is 22%, $1,800 per pupil. The average charter school ends up with a total funding shortfall of nearly $500,000. Yet, 12 studies find that overall gains in charter schools are larger than other public schools. 4 find charter schools gains higher in certain significant categories of schools, and 6 find comparable gains to traditional schools. Those were a number of points that have to do with the differences between charter schools and public schools. My brief message today is that I believe that we should not leave any public school behind as high performing. I also believe that even though reform seems to focus on our teachers, I have a different attitude. As a parent, I've tussled with teachers of my children. I've gone to say that, you sure they're jumping up and down in the class? But I have respected that teacher to say, how can we work together? When you have massive layoffs of teachers, what you fail to recognize is, oh, you may have a situation where your level and your cup has run over. You're throwing away tens of years, or hundreds of years, or tens upon tens of years of experience. Wouldn't it be better to say to these teachers, I'm going to give you 6 months of professional development and let you come back refreshed, more astute, to work in the public schools. So So if we have the opportunity to find what the formula is for schools that are high performing, my challenge to you today is to make sure for the African American child that the African American child is in a high performing school no matter where they might live. In the deepness of Mississippi to the high buildings of New York to the plains of Texas, they should be able to be in a high performing school. I will not share with you the statistics that I have, but I will say to you that in interacting with our schools and visiting with teachers who teach African American male children, what they say is that they perform if inspired. And so public schools need to be part of the inspiration of education as well. And the presenters probably spoke of many forms of education. But I will leave you by simply saying, if we fought to desegregate public schools, they are worthy of our keeping them. You must realize that the equality of America was based not on the many variations of the goodness of what we have today in education, but it was based upon the goodness of being able to put children in public schools where they would not have to pay, but they graduated and they learned and they led. Let us do that again. Let us be reminded of the history of which we have come. Match our charter schools, our private schools, and our public schools, and let there be not one divide between the excellence of all of them. Find your comfort level, but make sure no child has to take a lottery to be educated. And in the words that you've often heard, Rosa Parks sat down so that Martin might walk, so that Jesse might run, so that each and every one of you might win, along with President Barack Obama. Let me thank you and save the public schools.
I want to thank my colleagues, Sheila Jackson-Lee and Don Payne, and Yvette Clark, and others who may have been here. And again, we want to apologize. We had votes and whatnot. First, I want to recognize a distinguished gentleman that's here, Donald Payne, Jr., who is the president of Newark City Council. Donald Payne, Jr., and Bill Payne, former legislator of New Jersey. Bill Payne. We have already heard in poetry and prose how important education is. And I'm not going to elaborate on that other than to say that for a student, it's important because those who get a good education are much less likely to be involved in crime, much less likely to be unemployed, much more likely to be able to get a good job. There's an old saying that the more you learn, the more you earn. So it's good for the student. It's also important for the community. Those communities that invest in education are more likely to have less crime, pay less welfare, and also to attract businesses to the community because businesses are looking for an educated workforce. We also know that business is important for competitive advantage because we are competing on an international basis, and education is one of those competitive advantages, but we look up and find that we are falling further and further behind in terms of math, in terms of science, in terms of percentage of students who graduate from college. We're falling behind, and so we're losing that competitive edge. There are a lot of challenges that we have in education. We've heard some of them from the questions, like what is a good teacher? How do you evaluate what a good teacher is? Paper qualifications do not make a good teacher. Might help, but if, and make the analogy that if knowing baseball was your measure of skills, George Will, that 70-year-old man, knows more baseball than anybody else. Can't pitch, but knows baseball. And so we need to make sure we differentiate between paper qualifications and really ability to teach. We need to make sure these tests that the students take are validated for the purpose for which they're being used. You may find that a school is doing okay or not, but for an individual student, it may not be fair to have a high-stakes test to ascertain whether they're going to graduate, whether they're going to be promoted, and all of that. We have to make sure those tests are validated for the purpose for which they are being used. And then the question, what should they be taught to begin with? what are the essential elements? So we have a lot of challenges, and we've seen today what works. Achievable Dream in my district has been shown to reduce the dropout rate, make sure young people graduate and go on to college. We've heard, I've actually seen different studies than Sheila cited. Studies I've shown is that vouchers and charter schools on average do about the same. Some do better, some do worse than the normal public schools. So we need to make sure that we are taking advantage of what actually works and what doesn't. One of the challenges we have is what we need to do to actually make improvements. Teachers, making sure the best teachers get to the most challenging schools. I mentioned this morning that some of these simplistic solutions don't work. Firing all the teachers at the bad school and keeping all the teachers at the good schools, all that does is scares the good teachers from going to where they're most needed. Why would a good teacher go to a bad school? The teacher might lose a job. They want to go to a good school where their job security is there. So we need to make sure that we don't have some of these simplistic slogans and solutions that actually might be counterproductive. We need to make sure that we make the investments to reduce the achievement gap. When you acknowledge that you have an achievement gap, we need to make sure that that is tantamount to acknowledging that you're violating the students' civil rights. When you're educating the black students to the 10th grade and the white students to the 12th grade, you have violated the civil rights of the minority group because under the Brown language you have denied the children of the minority race of an equal educational opportunity. And you go back through the litigation and find out when the special ed students wanted a decent education and somebody said, well, it costs too much. The judge said, I don't care what it costs. They are entitled to an education, and whatever it costs, you got to bring them up, so that if you only teaching the black kids to the 10th grade, I don't care what it costs. You cannot violate their civil rights. They are entitled to a 12th grade education just like everybody else. And if you've got to put some more resources in it, so be it. We have to make sure that this civil right to a decent education is achieved, and we have great allies in the Obama administration. We also can't tolerate this dropout rate where some schools are dropping out 50% and still under the formula achieve AYP. We told them way back in 2001 that they needed the dropout rate as an essential element of the calculation for AYP, otherwise you'll have a perverse incentive to push people out because they're dropping out from the bottom. More people drop out, your average goes up. Well, we can't have that, and what they've done is they didn't follow that advice. And you have schools with a 50% dropout rate achieving AYP. I will assure you that if Don and I have anything to do with it on the committee, that when we authorize ESEA, that dropout rate will be an essential element. And if you have a high dropout rate, not do anything about it, you will not be achieving AYP. So we need to make sure that we invest the money. We're investing all our money right now, not in education and getting young people on the right track and keep them on the right track. What we are doing is watching them drop out of school, mess up, join a gang, get caught, and getting into a bidding war with slogans and sound bites, how much time they're going to serve in prison. We lock up a higher portion of our population today than anywhere on earth. The Pew study says it's so high that it's actually counterproductive. It's anything over 500 per 100,000, counterproductive. You're injecting more social pathology into a community than you're bringing out. And you've got some people that are locking up so many people that if you just look at the cost for the counterproductive incarceration, you're talking about several $1,000s per child in that community. And 10 states lock up, so if you took all that money and aimed it all at the 1/3 of the children that you can categorize as at risk, and put all the money that you're wasting on counterproductive incarceration on that 1/3 of the children, you're up to $10,000 per child per year that they're deciding to spend on wasted incarceration rather than productive education. We need to change that. The Youth Promise Act makes those investments, gets young people on the right track, keeps them on the right track, and dismantles the cradle to prison pipeline that we found to be just a waste of the taxpayers' money. So we have a lot to do. We have a lot of challenges, and we need to make sure that we put the money where it's needed and make the changes that are needed so that the children's civil right to an education is not violated. Thank you very much.
We have been joined by the chairwoman of the CBC, Congresswoman Barbara Lee.
Good afternoon. Let me thank all of you for coming here this afternoon, and I want to thank, in her absence, Assistant Secretary Ali for opening our forum with words I believe, and I know her, and she has words always that empower all of us to be responsible for our communities and our youth. Also, let me just thank the panel for spending time with us, one of experts, imparting information, but also listening to what you need to tell us. I want to especially acknowledge my colleagues, Congressman Chairman Don Payne, also Bobby Scott, Chairman of the Crime Subcommittee, because they have been true leaders. They're also on the Education Committee and have been true leaders in trying to crack this pipeline from the cradle to the prison. I don't know of two members of Congress who consistently, and you've heard from both of them, who have consistently talked about our young kids and the fact that education is the key to prosperity, and that we need to reorder our priorities so that education becomes a priority of our federal government. So I just want to thank you again for your leadership and for staying the course, because this can get pretty difficult sometimes. I can remember with No Child Left Behind, when that was coming through, there were only maybe 15 members who voted no, and I swear to goodness I wanted to vote no. And Don Payne told me, Barbara, you had to be with me on this one, but I voted for it, and I tell you, Don, you were right. You were right. So I'm one who thinks that, you know, there are those, and I know we have to reform No Child Left Behind, but I think we need to get rid of it myself personally. But, you know, I know that under our Secretary, Arnie Duncan, that closing the achievement gap and making education a priority for all of our children is this administration's priority. I'm pleased to see my superintendent, Dr. Tony Smith, here. Thank you so much for being here, for your leadership, and he's doing a phenomenal job in Oakland, California. In fact, just last week we had Secretary Duncan, Dr. Smith, and superintendents from all around my district, school board presidents, teachers, and other education stakeholders to talk about really where do we go from here and how to make sure that this achievement gap is closed, and how do we make sure that the 55–60% of African American and Latino young boys don't continue to drop out of school, and what we need to do to make sure that we turn this around. So I'm very hopeful under your leadership that Oakland's going to be a model for the rest of the country. So thank you again, Tony, very much. Unfortunately, I wish we all were here to celebrate how we have closed the achievement gap. I wish that we were focused on how we have broken this pervasive pipeline to prison for many African American and Latino men and young boys. And I wish we did not have to have, and it's really a shame that we have to have, the Office of Civil Rights, mind you, at the Department of Education. That, to me, is just outrageous. Sadly, we have to have one, and that office is doing a great job. Just this past month on CNN, they featured the 2010 SHOP 50 State Report on Black Males in Education. I don't know if you've talked about that here today, but it was so, and as a former public welfare mother who had to raise 2 single young black boys by myself in public schools, it was really very disappointing to me to hear that we still have only 47% of our African American boys graduating. 47%. Half of the states showed graduation rates for African American male students way below the national average. And what's more concerning is that this does not even account for African American girls or our Latino youth who are also facing low graduation rates. So let me just say, as a mother now and as a grandmother, you know, I still am extremely concerned about the dropout rate and what's taking place in terms of our children in our public schools. And as a member of the Appropriations Committee, the subcommittee that funds our education programs, I'm committed to trying to figure out how we stop funding all these wars and bombs and the Pentagon to the tune of $700-some billion and find some of the resources to begin to turn our education system around. That's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. we've got to see beyond the 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. school day. And the 2 children with dad at work and mom at home kind of mom. As I said earlier, I raised these 2 little boys who are great 40-some-year-old young men now, doing a wonderful job raising their families. But even then, there was only a small percentage of our families in a nuclear family. And it was very hard without the support that was necessary to raise 2 kids alone. And so we have to have education reform that looks at the whole child, the entire child, and engages communities and our parents and our counselors and our teachers and our social workers and our business community. Each generation is really responsible for bringing up the next generation forward. And I have to quote from Dr. King. He once said that the most pressing and most urgent question is, what have you done for others? Mind you, what have you done for others? Each of us must ask ourselves, as we forge ahead with education reform, what have we done for America's children? So we need to come together to ensure the success of all of our children, not just a select few. And the Congressional Black Caucus, I must say, has been on the cutting edge, on the leading edge of education reform, and continues to be that drumbeat on Capitol Hill to make sure that education becomes the best possible education for all children, rather than only a few that can afford it. And so thank you again very much to the panelists. Thank you, Don, and Danny Davis from Illinois, who has been unbelievable on education issues, has co-chaired our reinvestment task force and is doing a phenomenal job, making sure that those who have been incarcerated, formerly incarcerated individuals, get a second chance. That means they too need the education and workforce training that we need to put as a priority for our federal government. Thank you again, members. Thank you for being here. I hope you go home and hold your elected officials accountable to an agenda of real education reform.
Thank you, Chairwoman Lee. Now we'd like to recognize Congressman Danny Davis from Illinois.
Thank you very much. You know, the good thing about being last is everything has been said except that you haven't said it. But let me thank all of the panelists, first of all, and all of you for being here. It's always good to interact with my colleagues, all of whom are some of the most distinguished individuals that I've ever had the opportunity to know and work with. And it's always a pleasure just to work with them. Bobby, Dunn, and I have been on education together at different times. It was a joy to sit there and watch how they operate. And of course, Barbara Lee has no peer when it comes to energy, leadership, courage, and determination. I'll just mention a couple of things about education. I'm a sort of a philosophical kind of guy. I remember reading something one time that Abraham Lincoln was supposed to have said. And that is that education makes a person easy to lead, but difficult to drive. Easy to govern, but impossible to enslave. And I also remember Malcolm got a school in my district named after Malcolm X Community College. Malcolm said that education is our passport to the future, or tomorrow belongs to those who prepare today. But the best saying I've ever heard about education was something that Harriet Tubman was supposed to have said. And that is, some people say that education makes fools out of people. But then she said, I know more fools who don't have any. And so I guess if a person had to be a fool, it's best that they be an educated fool. But the realities are that our public education in this country is in a state of crisis. Any way you cut it, any way you look at it, any way you evaluate it, any way you dissect it, achievement gaps are off the chart in terms of being able to measure. School districts and policymakers are trying almost anything that they can think of, hoping that it might work. There are serious attempts in some instances and in some places to decimate public education as we have known it. And I happen to believe that public education has been the greatest equalizer that has existed in this country and is the one thing that has set us apart in many instances from many other countries. But we're trying whatever we can try, a variety of alternatives. And I think we're trying all of those alternatives or new ideas because by and large the general public has lost confidence in what we call public education. Therefore, people don't want to send their kids to public schools for a variety of reasons. I am convinced that the most effective thing that we can do for public education is to find a way to get the meaningful involvement and participation of the average citizen in helping to determine education policy. And that without it, we try all of these things without the buy-in. I've spent most of my adult life in what one would call inner city communities in the ghetto. I've lived and worked among poor people all of my life. Because even when I was a kid, I lived and worked among poor people. We were all poor. And so I've observed many of the things that go on. And I've observed that whenever there is meaningful engagement and involvement of what we call community, the level of education achievement is very different. And I think it's different because the children are in contact with reinforcement all the time, all the time. Do good, do better, read more. You can if you try. Education has to become the sine qua non for people believing that they can change the quality of their lives. And so I'm big on this concept of parent involvement, parent participation, community involvement, community participation, preacher involvement, everybody involved. And I didn't come by it just by osmosis. I must confess that I read something one time in an Education Digest about a school district in St. Louis, Missouri. And it was the Banneker School District. And there was a superintendent who came there, his name was Shepard. And it was a terribly performing district. And Dr. Shepard became the Pied Piper for education. He'd go down to the pool hall and challenge the guys shooting pool. He'd shoot pool with them. And so now after I get through beating you, go home and help your son with his homework. He'd go to the teachers' meetings and say, you know, I listened to you teachers and you talked a great deal about working conditions and you talked about the need for some salary changes and all of that. But I didn't hear you talk a whole lot about how you were going to improve the achievement and accomplishment of teachers. So that's the one point that I will make. The other point I will try and reinforce a little bit of what our chairman said, our chair lady, Barbara. African American boys are really in a special area right now. First in everything negative that you can come up with. We've been pressing Ernie Duncan, my good friend, hard ever since he's been here to let's do something special about these special needs of African American males. And I understand all these concepts that a rising tide lifts all boats. And I understand the broadly based activities and all of that. As a matter of fact, I understand it well. But I can tell you, if your boat is stuck and there's concrete on the anchor, the tide can come along, but your boat probably won't move. And so you gotta loosen up something for that boat. You gotta have some special programs. You gotta have some special activities. You've gotta have something that is different. I've seen schools where, oh, they do special things and the kids are just unbelievable. I have a little school in my district, Providence St. Mayor, a fellow named Paul Adams runs. Everybody who comes out of Providence St. Mayor goes to college. You don't even, there's no doubt about it. But Paul has an approach and a discipline code that says if you violate more than maybe once, you just ain't got no reason to be here. But he doesn't have the big problem because they help orientate the kids towards a recognition that there are certain things expected, there are certain things desired, and if you want to be successful, you do those. I taught for a few years myself, and I had my own little motto about teaching, and that was very simple. I said that if I could motivate, I could teach. If I could motivate, the kids would learn. So the principal came by one day and I was standing on the top of the desk. And he looked in the door and said, "What the?" They said, "Mr. Davis, when your period's over, would you please come down to the office?" I said, "Oh, well, I lost my job." So I get down to the office and he says, "Friend, can you tell me what you were doing on top of the desk?" I said, "Well, Dr. K, I just believe that if I can have the kids' attention, that I have a better chance of them learning." And I was on the top of the desk because at that moment, I needed to get their attention. And I think in many communities and school districts across the nation, they will learn if we get the attention of their community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We've been joined by another CBC member, Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson, who will come up and give remarks as well.
Good afternoon. It's good to see that people still here interested in education after you've been sitting here most of the afternoon while we were on the Hill working. Let me thank the panelists who have come, and I hope Mrs. Black. Did Mrs. Black come earlier? Good. I'm delighted that we were able to get her to come. She would be participating in the morning with the Science and Technology Brain Trust as well. But she is the principal of one of the schools that has been declared the best public school in the country, in my district. And it's a magnet school. You've probably heard about it. She might have mentioned it earlier today. But that school and a few other educational institutions in Dallas has convinced me that with the proper tools, all kids can learn. If the principals are good and they have the ability to pick teachers who are good, that are interested in students, that will attract those parents to come out and support their kids, we see a difference in the achievement. And it's very, very important that we as a people focus on closing this achievement gap. For the 18 years I've been in Congress, I've been pushing STEM courses. That's the science, technology, engineering, and math. And of course, I started getting interested in those areas years ago because I was living right there where Texas Instruments had been organized, and I could tell that it was going to be the technology that was going to bring us to where we are now. And so my first legislation to try to get more minorities and women involved in those courses was in 1974. And we needed as much now as we did back then, because our young people, most especially our minorities, are not doing nearly as well in those areas as what we'd like to see and what they need to be doing. And so it is still a struggle to attempt to bring that gap to a close. But it has to be emphasized. We must be interested, because that's where the abilities are needed. And not only will it affect them in their own communities, it will affect our nation and how we can compete with the rest of the world. The legislation that we worked on a number of years, America Competes, is a very key piece of legislation where not only are we encouraging more study and research for undergraduate students, but also encouraging teachers to go back and get their needed skills that they need and giving support for that. I am kind of concerned really about the education in our country, and it's not because we're disinterested. It's because I don't know whether we've coordinated well enough that we've been able to get all of the people thinking in the same direction on the achievement. I know that some, and especially in my state, I'm from Texas, don't even want to think about the measurement with the rest of the nation. And I think that's very unfortunate. Well, we do have some very skilled educators at some of our better universities are pushing right ahead in spite of some of the elected leadership in our state. But we as a people must not allow any school district that you have anything to do with get by with not doing what they should be doing. The governors often need more education. We have elected school boards. They're very interested people or they wouldn't be running, but they don't always have the skills to look at the right things, to always make the decisions for the directions. And sometimes they get tied up into things that are not necessarily the most important thing as it relates to the quality of education. And so I would just simply say to all of you that education is now, has been, and will be one of the most important areas we can emphasize for all young people. It doesn't mean all of them are going to college. It doesn't mean all of them are going to get a PhD, but it means a whole lot more of them ought to be trying to get a PhD in these courses so that they can go back and be effective teachers to the young people who are waiting to be taught. Standards ought to be set. Young people should not be allowed to believe that they can't make it or they're not interested, if this is not popular. Now, and I'm not a communist, but I have visited education in communist countries, and I can tell you that when they direct those courses to be taught, those students go to those classes and they learn, and they're doing better than we're doing. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to promote anything that's communist, but what I will say is parents need to work with our teachers and our education leadership to be sure that the right emphasis are being placed on education and skills so that the children won't get confused, the students won't get confused between what the parents are saying and what the teachers are saying. This is very important. I remember used to getting mad because my daddy walked in the classroom all the time. And then after I got to be an adult, my grandmother was a school teacher. After I got to be an adult, I realized that he was doing it because he was interested in my achievement. But I thought he was checking on me, and I didn't like it. Now, if more parents did that, we'd have many more kids achieving. But students must understand that their parents and their teachers are on the same team, and they're working together to make sure that they can achieve. Because education is not everything, but it means a lot in making a living and being independent. It means a lot in bringing forth your own happiness and pleasure. And I will close because everybody in here already know what I'm saying. I tell young people all the time that there's a phrase that I want them to remember, and it is called deferred gratification. And I use this example. I went to college so long ago that none of them can relate to it, but when I went to college, I was in South Bend, Indiana, and we could go cheer for the University of Notre Dame and all that. And there were sock hops after the games where you could go, and I don't even know what they call them now, and entertain yourselves and have a good time after a game was won, most especially. And I tell them now, I don't remember how many I attended, and I don't remember how many I missed. But I know one thing, I didn't want to get sent home for having less than a B. So I missed some of them. And I would go to the other part of the dormitory to study because I was kind of ashamed to let people see that I didn't go to all that social stuff. But my transcript is the only thing that has stayed with me all these years. That's the only thing I can remember because it's in black and white. And so there are times when you might have to miss that sock hop, miss that television program, or miss that chilling in the hood until you get done what you're trying to achieve. And then you can have all the gratification you want. I'm of the age now that my life is gratification. I do what I want to do when I get ready to do it. But you got to work to that point. And deferring that gratification is more likely to get you there. Thank you very much.
All I want to say, I heard my friend and colleague Eddie Bernice Johnson from the great state of Texas. What we should be saying is what Fannie Lou Hamer has said back in the 60s. We're sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of us not taking our education seriously. I'm sick and tired of hearing excuses. I'm sick and tired of us making alibis while our kids are not learning, etc. When I know that we were in worse conditions. Our people were in worse conditions, in schools in worse shape than schools are today, yet they instilled on us and many others that we must succeed. There was no choice. There was no choice. And in today's world, where our young people have to compete, not with just John or Hassan or Shirley from next door, because those days are over. You don't compete with the person next door. You don't even compete with the person in the same city or state that you live in. You don't compete with the same person in the same nation. The competition today is global. And some people don't like globalization, but let me tell you something. It's here and it's here to stay. And globalization means you've got to compete. And if you don't compete, you're going to finish last. That's the reality of the world that we live in. I happen to be on the International Relations Committee. I travel all over the world. There in other countries, their number one emphasis of parents and everyone else is education. And that's who our kids are going to have to compete against. And if we don't get up to it, to speed, then we will be left behind. And history says that, we brag and we talk about our nation right now, that we're the world's biggest and only superpower. Well, my history tells me superpowers don't last forever. They don't last forever. And superpowers are based upon intelligence. And if other individuals are educating their people and making sure that they're getting what they need, then we will fall behind. And many of these other countries are laughing at us. And so I say this is why this form, and what we need to do in our communities is wake up and listen and work together. Because anything less means we're not going to have a better tomorrow. Anything less means we're not going to be able to compete. And I also understand that education means several different things. Some people need to make sure, that they are able, they're good with their hands. Schools and opportunity gives people open doors, open windows for what your natural skills are. And we need to make sure that we're focused on that. So we have the experts here, and I'm sure that you can get a whole lot from them. I've got to give special shout out, of course, to my friend and brother from New York City and the Eagle Academy, Mr. David Banks. And the reason why I do that, because there's, in New York, and I guess it happens other places, where we've had study after study on the plight of African American males. And you just, every time you go, we're going to study African American males, and you get to study. You're going to study African American males, and you get to study. Nobody then turns that into something of substance. What the Eagle Academy has done in New York is said, forget the studies, we're going to get down in the dirt with young men, we're going to teach them how to be men, and we're going to educate them so that they can make sure that they can raise families, they can participate in the society, and they're not going to jail. That's real, and I want to say to David Banks, we appreciate what you're doing for there. I want to thank all of you for being here this weekend in this workshop at this time, because guess what? The time is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Weeks. And now we will hear from our second panel. We introduced them prior to the first panel, so if you'd like additional information about them, please refer to your packets. We will first hear from Dr. Gregory Thornton. I'm sorry, Dr. Eugene Sanders.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that Dr. Thornton is not in charge of Cleveland. It makes me feel a little bit better. I am delighted to be with you this afternoon and appreciate this grand opportunity to talk with you briefly about systemic change and transformation and how it can impact the work that we're doing, not just in Cleveland, but indeed around the nation and indeed the world. I am Eugene Sanders. I'm the CEO of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District in Cleveland, Ohio. And again, I'm grateful and thankful for this opportunity to be a part of this distinguished panel and share with you what's working in our district as we transform our schools and close the achievement gap that has left too many of our children, both black and white, certainly left behind. I'm especially pleased today to be joined by my good friend and, in my opinion, one of the outstanding superintendents and leaders in the nation, Dr. Marion Bolden. I had the opportunity to work with her on a number of years and strongly appreciate her leadership on a national scale. I also want to thank my Congresswoman, Marcia Fudge, for the opportunity to present today and talk with you. During difficult economic times that's happening in Cleveland and around the nation, reform initiatives like transformation plans often have difficulty being implemented because a lot of the things that we've heard from our elected officials just a moment ago are really cornered by some realities around budgets, around the reality of dynamics within families, and with the community itself. There's been a great deal of conversation by our elected officials around the importance of global competitiveness as well in the context of how to improve student performance. What I'd like to do with you today is really share with you some frameworks, or at least a framework of what I think and what a lot of us think are critical to any change that we'd like to see in terms of student performance among African American students in urban communities or in communities across the nation. And a lot of it really is very difficult because it truly challenges the way in which we've always done things. And it's a real shift in terms of our philosophical thinking about how the work gets done. First of all, there has to be a significant redirection in our community and our nation around clear and success around student achievement. And any superintendent or CEO will spend his or her time telling you that there's no more important work than really identifying what does move the needle on student achievement. How do we do that in a way that allows for true reform to take place while acknowledging some of the realities that we are indeed faced with? Today, I'd like to talk about some of those things that really moves the student achievement agenda. And one of those is truly around instructional practices, which really speaks a lot to teacher quality and teacher performance. With Race to the Top, there is a new emphasis now on correlating teacher evaluation with actual performance. One of the challenges that we've had around our nation is how much do we really tie together the evaluation of an individual with the outcome of what they actually do. What really happens in public education around the nation is that we could essentially fail an entire class or an entire school, and in a lot of cases there not be a real degree of accountability of what happens in that particular school. In other words, there are cases where an entire school or an entire class could fail. Those folks would go home for the summer, come back in August or September, and begin the process again. So one of the real systemic conversations that we need to have around the nation, and a lot of folks are concerned about this correlation because it reminds us a lot of the business model in terms of product and a profit at the end of the day versus the student and the human quality of work that we do in schools. But if we're truly going to be competitive in the 21st century, we have to have a very serious conversation around tying what we do as educational leaders, teachers, principals, with what actually happens in terms of performance. All the schools that were being recognized by our elected officials a moment ago probably has a strong systemic framework around tying how students really do with the actual evaluation and success. I would also strongly recommend emphasis on human capital. Human capital refers to people who come into our system, how they get hired, what happens to them in the process of them working for us, and then how they exit the organization. Also on resource allocation, budgets. Budgets are a reality. We probably hear finance a lot from the folks who are on this panel today around some of the challenges. A lot of people often want to do a lot of things, but it requires resources to do that. Community engagement and parents are a key component. Performance management, service quality in terms of how we treat each other. My personal opinion is that sometimes when you work in inner cities or minority communities, those who work in those communities often have less value placed upon how they feel about their work environment. We see it in terms of absenteeism. We see it in terms of collective philosophical approaches to the work that's done. And finally, some reform and systemic attention to governance and management itself, school boards and their role in real student achievement. One of the questions that we can always ask ourselves around the governance piece, while I know there's a lot of debate around elected versus appointed boards of education, attend a school board meeting and stop every 5 or 10 minutes or so and ask a question around whether or not we've been discussing true student achievement over the course of the meeting will give you some idea of what are the true conversations that need to take place. So in summary, I would strongly suggest that any systemic reform has to crystallize around student achievement, focusing on instructional practices, human capital, resource allocation, community engagement and parent involvement, performance management, service quality, and governance and management. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Glad you're all still here. I don't even know what I'm supposed to say anymore. I'm going to be brief. I'm not going to do the intros and all of that. I am a retired superintendent, I will tell you that. I'm from Newark, New Jersey. I've been an educator for 40 years. I went to Newark as a student for 13 years. I spent 4 years in college preparing to teach in Newark, so I think I know a little bit about what goes on in the city of Newark, New Jersey. I'm going to say this, though. The reason that I accepted the job was to deal with youngsters who are so disadvantaged and are so negatively portrayed throughout this country. Newark is still the butt of jokes on every television show that you see. And I said one of the things that I would do was try to change that enduring negative image that is cast over my kids. Well, I didn't do very well, because people still talk about Newark as though youngsters aren't sensitive to the things that you say. And I thought that there were some good things that I could share with you today, and all of you would go out and say some good things in Newark, so the few of you that are here, that are left, find 10 people and tell them something good about the city of Newark. I'm going to be brief, and I'm going to change everything that I had planned to say, simply because I've heard what some of the congressmen have said. I've heard the principals. There's absolutely a need to be laser focused when it comes to education. I was the associate superintendent of curriculum and instruction. I was a high school mathematics teacher. They put me there because I would be laser focused on academics. Well, I did do that, but I found as superintendent I had to do a whole lot more. And so those principals that spoke today, I really wish that they were here, because I agree with almost everything they say. But when they said that the principal's job is the hardest, that's not true. A superintendent of an urban district has the hardest job in America. Somebody alluded to the SHOT report. And one of the things that I wanted to share, I'm going to fast forward through most of the presentation, but African American young men is a very big part of the work that I did for the 9 years that I was superintendent. And in that SHOT report, it identified New Jersey as one of the states that had the highest graduation rate of African American young men. And it also said, in the state of New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey, had the highest graduation rate of any urban district in the country. Now, did any of you know that? No. Because people don't want you to know that. That's why there's nobody here to bring the news, but the SHOT report's going to help do that. And one of the last graphics that I have will show what that graduation rate was. But there was also a congressman that said if the boat is anchored to the bottom of the sea and it can't move up, that's where I spent a lot of my work. That's where I spent the work on the Saturdays and the Sundays, dealing with youngsters so that they feel that we cared about them so much that they could see it. That's why I'm sorry that the principal who was here, did they call her the preacher principal? I wanted her to be here, so I'm going to find out who she is and I'm going to call her. But stability makes a difference in urban districts. You can't have superintendents 2 years and in 3 years, and let me say, governors for 2 years and 3 years, and commissioners. Stability does make a difference. And I don't agree 100% with the young man who said, no, yes, you do want to say no excuses. But Pedro Noguero, in one of, what did he say?
Pedro Noguero is having a program, he's looking in Newark, that is looking at and addressing comprehensively.
Oh yeah, I'm going to get to that. The global village. But what did it say on the top of his piece? It says, poverty does matter. Why do we keep playing games with saying poverty doesn't matter? How are you going to say poverty doesn't matter when you got kids who are hungry, kids who are afraid to walk home, and then their grades are supposed to be that of what Livingston, that's a very upper-class suburb in New Jersey. But we had an opportunity in New Jersey to right the wrong. We got Abbott funding. Oh, we had it all. And we had a budget of $927 million. You want to know what it is today? 700. You do the math. $200 million was taken from the budget because they said to Abbott districts, you didn't show progress. Well, that's not true. I'm going to fast. You tell me, and let me tell you, I was criticized for this chart because it's incremental growth, superintendent, and they wanted magic. There is no such thing as magic. If you look at the scores from 2001 to 2007, I don't have 2008, that's the year that I left, but they went up again, that is significant growth. And you don't have the Hawthorne effect of it going up and going down, but it takes hard work. Reform is in all different variations, but you got to have a good principle. Let me tell you, you have a good principle, superintendents don't need to work. Because what good principals do is to make sure they have good teachers. And good teachers are the number one piece or factor, that's the better word, yes ma'am, that make the difference. And I always say to myself, could I have been I was the best teacher that I know because I would steal from every other teacher that was doing something that was effective. I want to get to, we do have early childhood, pre-K, that does make a difference. You got to have money to do it. I just want you to look at this chart. This chart, and I did have my, oh, here it is. The green is Newark. The red or pink up here, test scores of the affluent districts. During the Abbott funding, here's how the gap was closed. And we have a governor, I'm sorry that none of the legislators are in here, who came to Washington and testified that Newark is embarrassing. How could a governor say that? He's never been in one of our schools, but if it's the right soundbite at the right time, that's what you say. It does make a difference when you spend money on quality curriculum, try to get the best teachers that you can, and I got 1 minute left. Oh, God. Okay, graduation rate. This is what the SHOT report is about. And do you know we were also criticized about this because they said, was it self-reported? Newark is a state-operated school district. It was self-reported. It's a state-operated school district. We use the formula that everybody in the state used, cohort to cohort. Yes, it was self-reported, but I knew they were going to say that. So I went out and got an outside consultant to come in and to do another analysis to confirm that these are, in fact, the graduation rate. And it went from 47 to 79%. And I have a minute. Oh, can't talk about that. She's going to put that minute up there. I wanted to tell you the kinds of things that we did. And I told you I spent most of my time being an academician. I spent the other time being an advocate. The boys told me they wanted new stadiums. I went to City Hall, I got a bond, I built new stadiums. And I told the coaches, you got new stadiums, I want GPA. Don't tell me what their scores are. I want to know what their GPA is. That's why kids stay. I opened up a student center, and in the student center, I have a nightclub. And I had a foundation criticize me about that. I got 5 letters from mothers saying, you saved my daughter's life, because now she wants to be a producer. They did everything in that nightclub, from the cooking to the lighting to mixing the music. They did everything. We opened a science center. And you know, I have conversations with my children. They know who I am. I can walk any place in that city, they know who I am. Because I need to know, what do you need from me so that you can do what you're supposed to do? Now, I'm not bragging about the graduation rate, because those youngsters who graduated still have D averages, some of them. But at least I had them. And it was flipping. And one of the charts showed how it was flipping, that more of them were graduating, passing the state test than not. And so in those 7 years, you could see that the money that we were given made an awful lot, I think. Big, big difference. I got Charlotte Davidson's teacher model evaluation. Those are things everybody else has said already. But that global village that you're talking about, that Pedro Magaro's coming in, and what it is, it's replicating the Children's Harlem Zone. All it is the same thing that Abbott afforded, to wipe out disadvantages as much as a school district can. And that means if you need a social worker or a tutor or extended day, then provide it. One of the legislators said, if that's what we need, demand it. Well, see, we demanded it. It was $900 million, and today it's $700 million. So I just wanted to ask them how they're going to help us reinstitute that. But there is a new paradigm out there and a new feeling. And I think people are recognizing we have got to work harder, smarter, give kids what they need, because we cannot afford to lose another generation of kids. I'm retired. I look so much better than if you had asked me to speak 3 years ago. But anyway, that's it. She's telling me to sit down. I will sit down.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me try to wake you up a little bit. It's been a long day. You know, whenever we have these opportunities, I feel so privileged to be with a group of educators. You know, I always come away better than I get more than I actually give. To my Congresswoman who is not here, who hasn't spoken, Win Moore, who's truly a champion, to the entire Black Caucus, I certainly salute your efforts in continuing to have this dialogue, which I think is America's biggest agenda. So I'm indeed delighted to be here. I would be less than honest to say that if you hear something too different, you know, I would be alarmed. I mean, the strands run through. I think you can listen to every speaker today, and you probably could tease out all the critical issues that are critical to success for youngsters in this community. I would be less than honest to say that we are in a very difficult place. I mean, there's certainly wonderful random acts of greatness throughout America. I sit on the stage with the Eagle Academy. You couldn't probably find a better school in America that basically is educating African American boys. I sit with my colleague from Philadelphia, Scott Gordon, who basically has the Mastery Charter School. I sat and listened to a group of, were you here earlier when the panel talked, and I actually had an opportunity to hear wonderful opportunities for young people around the country. But the challenge is that there's so many more that we're missing. I put together a really great presentation. I had to tell you that, but you're not going to see it out of the spirit of time. And I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm going to move. I thought we were going to be done at 5. I'm going to make sure I get a plane so I don't stay in D.C. all night long. But I want to share with you just a few things, and I think I can do it. As you begin to take a look at America and where we're going, you especially begin to focus on our African American boys, you must realize that the majority of our African American boys live in America's cities. And as a result of that, we can't neglect that. Whether you're looking at the NAEP results of 2009, and certainly I took an opportunity to highlight Milwaukee. Certainly it speaks to our call to urgency. But as you move across there, you can see the Detroits, the Clevelands, and you can see all the big cities that basically have become repositories for our youngsters. And it's certainly a very awakening for us. Take a look at 8th grade. You know what good school districts do, what good school districts try to do, is the longer we keep them, the more effective we are with them. And due to a number of factors, that's not true for us as we move forward. Take a look at our math scores. I'm really encouraged as a nation that we're moving in a direction that basically speaks to the issues around mathematics and science and the technology, STEM initiatives, because I really believe that's where the jobs are and where we need to be. But when you begin to take a look out into 8th grade, you can see that same paradigm starting to happen where you begin to see the slippage. And what that speaks to is the quality of education in secondary schools. That's where I focus. We need to be brave enough to allow the data to take us where we need to go. As you begin to talk about why and what's the purpose, you can't not look at where America is with respect to jobs and the challenges we have. We educate our young people to be adults. That's what it's for. We educate our youngsters to be family-oriented. We educate them to be leaders in our community. And we got to face the brutal facts that we have to create opportunities that allow our youngsters to get there. And you can see current employment recession, we're at a place that we haven't been in my lifetime. I would be remiss to say when I was a young boy growing up, and I'm speaking, this is a little quicker because I have appreciation for the panel. My dad was an unskilled worker. He had a really great job. He did well. He worked in a steel mill. I can't tell you, I've never been hungry a day in my life. You can look at me and tell. I've eaten well my entire life. But those jobs are gone. We have a new era that we're basically moving into. We had a new place, we're at a different place, and we got to prepare our youngsters for something that looks different. Take a look at what the pyramid looks like now. The unskilled labor is going away. The factories that were once there, Cleveland, all across this country are closing up. And our youngsters basically are hitting the unemployment lines because they do not have the skills that are necessary to be successful. The job demand is at a place that's never been before. We need to begin to think differently. I stopped by to say to you today, there's a really critical moment. We got to stop the conversations and the debates around the wrong issues. We're debating charters versus public. It doesn't matter anymore. Good schools are good schools, bottom line. And if we have if we can learn something from each other and begin to duplicate some of these things, I think we position ourselves in a different place. We got to stop the arguments around phonics versus direct instruction and all those things. Those are distractors. As long as we're distracted, we're not going to deal with the real issues that face America today. We got to start dealing with some of the real issues. We got problems in teacher quality. In my high schools, and you can see where Milwaukee's at, I have high school teachers who teach math who basically learn it the night before. They're one page ahead of the kids. It is impossible for those young people to be successful and continue to move on. We got to deal with teacher unions. No one wants to talk about it, but that's a challenge for us. It's a challenge, I know, for you. It's a challenge for most of us. The reality of it is that we got to stop the conversation around wages, time, and working conditions. We got to begin to think about professional learning community. It's a new time, and if we don't seize that moment, we're going to be in a very, very different place. We got to stop the conversations around governance. Good governance is good governance, whether it's a mayor running the city, whether it's a board running the city, or it's a czar running the city. It doesn't matter. Those are issues that take us off our mission because we're losing a generation of kids every year. And what we know, what it takes to run schools, it's simple. Whether it was Ron Edmonds in the 80s, and some of us were around in the 80s, some of us was around in the 90s, and everyone has a formula, but the formula doesn't change that you got to focus on student achievement with specific achievement goals. That we say it different. I mean, it's phrased different sometimes, but it's the same. We have to create concrete accountability systems that went beyond the states, what they've established. We've got to stop working to minimum standards. We have to create those things and be prepared and courageous enough to go where the data takes you at the end. We got to focus on our lowest performing schools. No longer is it okay to have great schools on this side of town and bad schools on that side of town. And if you happen to have the right zip code, you get into a good school. If you happen to know the right people, if you happen to know Dr. Bolton, you can pick up and call and say, you know, I want this to happen in my school. We have to create situations where we have win-wins for all children. District-wide curriculum. We got to get out of Burger King. Everybody having it their way. It doesn't work anymore. We got to have strong curriculum, access and opportunities for our youngsters throughout all of our schools. And we have to drive our reforms into classrooms. And we have to hold teachers accountable. We have to hold principals accountable. We have to hold all of us accountable. Because at the end of the day, we have what it takes to reform schools. The question is, do we have the courage? Do we have the will? I believe this is a very defining time for us. I'm so glad, encouraged that you folks are here having these conversations. Because at the end of the day, this is all that we have left. This is what America has left. This is it. Everything else is gone. I mean, we about lost Harley Davidson the other day in Milwaukee. It was national news. This is our last stance. We've already lost our African-American boys. You know that. You can't have more kids dropping out and being pushed out, because some of them are getting pushed out than staying. We got to go back and we got to confront those issues. I thank you for your attention. I thank you, Brave Souls, for just staying to the end. I'm going to ask that you stay here, all my colleagues, because these are smart people. They're smart people. So thank you for what you do every day on behalf of young people in this country.
Hi, I'm Tony Smith. I'm the superintendent of Oakland Unified School District. And it is really an honor and a pleasure to be here. Came at the invitation of my Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who's extraordinary. She's an amazing leader and somebody that our city and our community really looks up to and appreciates. Appreciate the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation for hosting this and having this conversation with the principals and other colleagues today. It's wonderful to be with you. We really take this responsibility as naming the issues that we're trying to focus on in Oakland as much bigger than simply education reform or changing outcomes in terms of test performance. What we've talked about is interrupting systemic oppression. And we think that you have to name it explicitly and directly and be fundamentally focused on this. Over time, this aggregation of inequity has become cumulative, it's become durable, and it's become racialized. And the way the patterns play out in our city are such. I'm going to read you a couple things and continue to talk. This is 2 miles apart. They did a data set over 13 years. Compared with a white child born in the Oakland Hills, an African-American child born in West Oakland is 1.5 times more likely to be born premature, 7 times more likely to be born into poverty, 2.5 times more likely to be behind in vaccinations, 4 times less likely to read at grade level by grade 4, likely to live in a neighborhood with 2 times the concentration of liquor stores, more fast food outlets, and no access to fresh fruit and vegetables, and it's 5.6 times more likely to be pushed out or drop out of high school. As an adult, he will be 5 times more likely to be hospitalized for diabetes, 2 times more likely to die of heart disease, 3 times more likely to die of a stroke, and 2 times as likely to die of cancer. Born in West Oakland, an African-American child can expect to die almost 15 years earlier than a white child born in the Oakland Hills, 2 miles apart. We're the primary public agency responsible for the health and well-being of children as the school district. Nobody in Oakland has been talking about this pattern. I got to come in, I'm an Oaklander, I live there, it's home, it's a blessing to be the superintendent in my own city. I have 2 children in the Oakland Unified School District. And the Alameda County Health Department had done this study in 2008. One of the first things we did when I got there, I started July 1 of 2009. We put this data out in front of people and said, that's the problem statement. This is an unhealthy city. We're dying. And it's not just about the African-American males. It's about our city is becoming a city that no one feels safe in. I had 20 children murdered last year. 20 of our school-age kids murdered. 18 to gun violence, 1 was run down, 1 was stabbed to death. The issue is we are not caring for our children. We have fallen down in our adult responsibility. So the question is, how do you take responsibility systemically for nurturing those places where there is some good success, these individual examples, these wonderful bright spots? Oakland is the most improved large urban district in California. We just got all the test scores back, all that stuff. Another year. This is 6 years in a row. It's been an amazing run. This year we doubled the average state growth. The achievement gap is still pretty solid. 915 points in the academic performance index is the average for white children, 645 for African American children. And yet we have a couple of schools that are among the highest performing places for African American kids in California. So we have a tremendous amount of work to do to name and be clear about the distance from this opportunity. So what we've said is that systemically we have to create the conditions where we name the opportunity, the access to this incredible good teaching is totally inequitable in the city of Oakland. And it's not just the school district's responsibility. What we have to do is decide as a city what it is we want every 18-year-old to know and be able to do, and then hold ourselves accountable as adults, as institutions. When I talk about systemic oppression and systemic racism, that's about the relationship between these different institutions, whether it's housing, the municipality, transportation, where people, choosing bus routes, everything. Over time, racist activity doesn't require a racist individual. If you've built systems that reproduce this inequity, eventually you have to change and transform the very system that you have your kids in, that you're training them up in. So that's what we believe the Oakland Unified School District has the capacity to do. Because we're calling this question and naming this as our responsibility as the city of Oakland to interrupt these patterns. When you see 80% of children in the Alameda County, we sit inside of a county, 80% of the children in the Alameda County juvenile justice system come out of Oakland. 80% of those children are African American. Right now, it's more likely if you're an African American male in the city of Oakland that you're incarcerated before you're 18, more likely that you're incarcerated than as you graduate from high school. Graduation rate is in the mid-40s somewhere. Incarceration rate for African American males is just over 50%. So we have a citywide problem that's about economics, it's about health, it's about well-being. We've said that we need to have a global strategy to become a full-service community district, to link services across the entire city, to become the coordinating, aligning, and leveraging system for Oakland. The title of our framework is called Thriving Students, Unifying Oakland for the Academic and Social Success of Our Children. I also know in my experience, if you have universal strategies, you don't get equitable outcomes. You don't interrupt oppression. So one of our key areas of focus is African American male achievement. And through outside fundraising and in partnership with the Urban Strategies Council, I now have an executive director for African American male achievement in my cabinet. Named, explicit, so to that anchoring down, if we don't get that kind of serious, and I put it out there and talk about it and have an executive director, cabinet level person helping to share these practices, name the issues, coordinate, leverage, activate all of the agency that's in the city, but to continue to name and keep this press on. I mean, I share it. This is my responsibility as a white ally to use my privilege in this work, to work across race. And I deeply believe, and this is why I had to go through an outside agency, that I need an African-American male who's an educator and leader in the community to do this work. I just, with Prop 209 in California, I couldn't be that specific. Otherwise, it'd be open to lawsuits. So we went through an outside agency, did outside fundraising, and now have $500,000 for the work for a team to come inside the district and help us do this. But this is about transforming our systems inside. It's about the relationships between institutions, because the reason I'm hopeful, we've made progress, but people built these systems in the first place. So we have the agency, power, and capacity to build new systems to get different results. And in partnership with other agencies, and whether it's the 100, whether it's the NAACP, everybody coming together to work in and with the faith community through schools, we believe we have the capacity. We are the solution. If we build the systems and be relentless in pursuit of a healthy Oakland, that means African American males need focus, care, and attention more now than others, but in service of this healthier city. So that's where we're headed. It's with the work we're doing, and I'm just really happy to be here today. Thank you very much.
Good evening. How everybody doing? So is anyone here from Congressman Fattah's office? There we go. I'm also going to change my presentation. Let me just first introduce myself. My name is Scott Gordon. I am the CEO of Mastery Charter Schools. We run 7 schools in Philadelphia, serve 4,100 children. What's unusual about Mastery is that 6 of our 7 schools are turnarounds of formerly failing school district schools. So why have I been invited here, or why is that an interesting fact? What I was going to spend a little time on is to give context to what's happening, certainly across our nation, but in Philadelphia. But I'm going to shorten it. We have 20,000 kids who enter our school system every year. At the end of 16 years, 2,000 of them will actually graduate college. So at least in Philadelphia, and this is pretty similar to other cities across the nation, we have a 90% failure rate. 90%. We also know that African American and Latino students, 17 years old, perform at the same level as 13-year-olds. So at least from where I'm coming from, our house is on fire. Like, we have an absolute catastrophe. Every single year, generation, our job as educators is to make sure we have productive citizens, and we are not even close. So why am I here? You know, in some ways, because we do turnarounds, Mastery is the perfect experiment. Same kids, in a turnaround we have to enroll the same exact children. Same neighborhood, same building. The only variable that changed were the grown-ups. Right? And we've had, as you can see, some pretty remarkable results. This is actually the alma mater of Congressman Chaka Fattah, his middle school. So test scores have gone up 71 points in seventh grade math. What is that? What are the implications? What are the lessons learned in terms of policy? So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. This is the wrong PowerPoint, but so we'll just go ad hoc. Folks, when they talk about education, we act as if somehow education is different than every other organization in the United States. That somehow schools are not like private business because kids aren't like widgets, right? Which certainly is true. But adults are the same in schools as they are in every other organization. And the fundamental things that it takes to run a great school are the same things it takes to run a great hospital, a great software company. In great companies, great organizations, they set clear goals, they supervise people, they promote great performers, they fire underperformers. But in schools, supervision is a 45-minute visit 2 times a year. It is impossible, nearly impossible, to fire teachers. So imagine running an organization, you're in charge of schools, you can't hold people accountable, you can't promote your high flyers, you can't fire the folks who are underperforming. I don't think it's any surprise that we have the results that we have. So I guess one of the things that I just want to urge as advocates for education, we're renewing ESEA. The standards need to be higher. We need more accountability, not less. I think it's complete bunk that our kids somehow don't test well. It's nonsense. Our problem is not that we have tests or we're teaching tests. Our problem is that our kids don't pass the test. So we need higher standards, more accountability. The whole notion, as a number of speakers sort of object to the sense of sort of closing down schools or firing teachers. Why not? We have a failing system. We need radical action. So we should absolutely be closing failing schools and turning them around and giving them to whoever runs it is successful. Who cares if it's a charter? Who cares if it's a public school? We need results. So I just want to use my 7 minutes, which hopefully I'm saving 2 or 3, to sort of demand accountability as advocates. We need not think about programs, not think about sort of project-based instructions. We need to demand accountability and be absolutely ruthless about it. Thank you.
In the country, there were independent schools and parochial schools and that kind of thing. Since we opened our doors, there have been about 30 more that have opened. And there's now a national organization called COSBAC, the Coalition of Schools Educating Boys of Color. And I would certainly invite you to go to their website and check them out as well if you want to see what this movement is beginning to look like. The Eagle Academy for Young Men started in New York as a result of the efforts of the 100 Black Men of New York, men who've always mentored and provided scholarships to young people in our community, always giving back, but recognized that we were in a sure enough crisis and we needed to do a lot more than we were doing. And with that, we decided to put our imprimatur on our own school. I had the good fortune of serving as the founding principal and was the principal there for 4 years after having served as a founding principal of another school for 7 years. And we opened Eagle, and it has been so successful. This past graduating class was just a shade below 90% graduation rate, and we do not, handpick any of our students. We had over 5,000 applications last year for 125 seats at our flagship school in the Bronx. And over 20% of our students have a special education designation. But yet we work with them and we get them through. The number one lesson that we learned when we created our first school was if we wanted to really be successful, we had to start earlier than the 9th grade. You can start at the 9th grade if you're going to handpick the cream of the crop kids, and then you can pat yourself on the back about the great job that you did. But if you're literally going to take all the kids as they come, you need a little bit more runway to get that plane off the ground. And so we decided that our model going forward would be grade 6. And we do a model of grade 6 through 12, eliminating kind of the middle school years and kind of absorbing that into the entire continuum, as you heard mentioned earlier today with Mayor Evers' school. There's a microphone here. But that's what we've done. So I'm just going to give you a couple of points, and then I'm going to get out of here. And I want to apologize for leaving as well, because I've got a train to catch in about a half hour. One, our academic program, academic rigor, absolutely phenomenal. You have to have that built in. I wouldn't do a proper service to trying to rush through all of these points. It's just too much stuff really to go through. But we have a very strong college-bound culture, community service. All of our young people each year are required to do 40 to 50 hours of community service throughout their entire school experience. That's particularly important when you're dealing with young men. Right? So many of our young men are being raised, and they always want to know what somebody's going to give them. So you have to incorporate that into your overall program of making sure that they understand what it means to give back. And as problematic as they think their own personal circumstance may be, there are people on this planet who are living in far worse conditions than they are. And they need to have a context for understanding what that means, right? Extended learning. All of our students have to put in an additional 2 hours of school after school each day of the week, and 3 to 4 hours on Saturday. And it's not all completely, an additional class or even tutoring. It's a combination of that with chess, debate, robotics, sports. It's all of those kinds of things that make them want to be in school in the first place. And so we find all of these programs and activities that connect our young men substantively, number one, and number two, reduces the amount of idle time that they spend on the streets. And so we reduce all of those kinds of things. Mentoring. We thought when we started the school to have a mentor for our young men would be a good thing. We had no idea how profoundly impactful it is for young men to have a man in their lives as a model for them. One of our students was interviewed recently by Newsweek magazine, and he said a young man without a mentor is like an explorer without a map. So many of them go through the entire school experience and never see a man, and particularly a male of color. So that's what we do. We have over 250 men who are mentoring at the Eagle Academy, and that's not at the one school. We opened a second school in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, in Brooklyn, New York, and just recently opened our third school in Southeast Queens in Congressman Greg Meeks's district. We have stumbled onto a formula that works. Young men coming in uniform each and every day. You know how many young men, when you want to send them out in 11th, 12th grade to try to get an internship or a job, and they don't have any idea how to even tie a tie. Yet we said we're preparing them for the real world. Young men that we say we want them to go to college so that they can be all that they can be. Have never visited a college, and we don't provide the opportunities for them to even go and visit. So at Eagle Academy, each one of our young men visits 3 to 4 colleges a year. A year. So by the time they graduated, they visited 15 to 20 colleges around the country. Because it's not enough for young men, it's not enough to tell them. You have to show them. They've got to be able to touch it, feel it, smell it. And so the week that they visit the college and university, the very next week, we're very intentional about it, the very next week, we take them to Rikers Island, to the prison. Because we don't want to go by, you know, how they just kind of glamorize what it means to be in prison and doing a bid. We take them in there and we let them see what it's really all about. Because again, for young ladies, you may be able to tell them, and in their mind's eye, they can conjure up what all this means and make effective choices. These young men, you better show them. They have to go into the prison with you right next to them, telling them, now, is this the kind of life that you want to have? When we showed you the week before what it's like to walk the green of a college campus. These are the things that are very, very important. I could get into a whole lot of educational philosophy and all of our kids can learn and all that kind of stuff. We all know that. I believe that from the bottom of my heart. That's never been an issue. The reality is that there's not enough actual on-the-ground work that is happening. You heard about the urban prep school in Chicago that's 100% of their students graduated. That was a school that came to visit the Eagle Academy 2 years before they opened their doors. Studied our model, see what we were doing. There are schools like that are opening up all over the country now. And not everyone is going to go to an all-boys school. But the reality is that you've got to have all of these pieces. Final word that I'll leave you with, I would first of all tell you, if you're interested in learning more about Eagle Academy, if you go to our website at eagleacademyfoundation.org, you can find out more information about us. If you're interested in getting in contact with me, you can reach me. I'll give you my phone number. It's 212-777-0382. If anybody who's interested in calling, next time you're in New York, 212-777-0382. If you ever want to come and visit and see what's happening in real action. Final point that I'll make as I wrap up is most people talk about parent engagement, but they really don't believe in it. If you want to come, if you want to see a school, the Chancellor of New York visited Eagle and said, if you don't do anything else, you need to write the book on how in the world you have this level of parent engagement. With 500 students in the school, if you come to a parent meeting on a Saturday morning, you will see over 400 families packed at a standard basic parent meeting. And there are about 10 different things that we do that allows for that to happen. I heard somebody kind of speak to it earlier, the preacher that was up here. She said, if you create an environment and a culture that's exciting, right? If your school is just a dead old school, sure, you should want to go to the school because your child goes there, so you should want to be involved, right? But in our community, it doesn't work that way. So you have to create a little bit of a buzz for people to want to be there and to be engaged. And there are concrete steps that you have to do. If you are doing parent meetings on a Wednesday or Thursday night at 6, 7 o'clock, you are already behind the 8 ball. You're going to get your regular 15, 20 parents that come out. That's what we used to do. We do the meetings now Saturday mornings. 400 parents coming out. You've got to feed them. And they have to know that they're going to be fed. It can't be a surprise when they get there. Right? And so, but there's so many more things that I could go into. So I'm going to wrap up. Just been sitting over here all this time. If anyone would like to be in contact with us at Eagle, we are doing some great things. We're getting ready to start to take the Eagle Academy model now around the country and replicating in some other cities. So there's some exciting things that are really happening. But you can find out a lot more about what we're doing if you be in contact with us. All right? Take care, everybody. Thank you.
I just want to thank all our panelists. I'm Jill with Congressman Danny Davis and all of our audience members who stayed to hear the fabulous presentations. Your presentations, the CBCF wants to have them online, so we're very excited. And they're things that we also share with the Education and Labor Committee. A number of us who are here are the education staffers who are critical to developing the Congressional Black Caucus's education actions. And so these discussions that you have had and your expertise directly affects how we proceed for our members. So we thank you very much for your patience and for your thoughtful comments. Thank you.